This will be her monument, a testament for all time.
Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where love didn't just move mountains, it carved them into poetry. Picture this. You're standing before the most breathtaking monument humanity has ever created. Its white marble surface shifting from silver to gold to rose as dawn breaks over the Yamuna River. The Taj Mahal isn't just architecture, it's a love letter written in stone, a promise that transcended death itself. But here's the reality check. You probably won't survive the emotional journey we're about to take together. Because this isn't just about a building. This is about a love so profound, it reshaped an empire, bankrupted a treasury, and gave birth to what poets call a teardrop on the cheek of time. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I love knowing you're out there, sharing this journey across time zones and continents. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're entering the golden age of Mughal India, where love and architecture intertwine in ways that will reshape history forever. The year is 1592, and in the bustling city of Lahore, now part of modern Pakistan, something extraordinary is about to unfold. The air carries the scent of jasmine and cardamom, the sound of craftsmen's hammers against precious metals, and the whispered prayers of an empire at its zenith. In the grand palace overlooking the Ravi River, Empress Jagat Gosain cradles her newborn son. This isn't just any child. This is Prince Khurram, the future Shah Jahan, whose name will become synonymous with architectural magnificence and undying devotion. But tonight, he's simply a baby whose grandfather, the great Emperor Akbar, looks upon him with eyes that seem to see the future itself. Akbar, the emperor who unified most of India under Mughal rule, holds his grandson with unusual tenderness. Court historians note that the great ruler, who typically maintained imperial distance even with his own children, immediately forms an unprecedented bond with this particular prince. There is no comparison between him and your other sons, Akbar tells his son Jahangir. I consider him my true son. The choice of the name Khurram, meaning joyous in Persian, proves prophetic. This child will indeed bring joy, though not always the kind one expects from royal offspring. Historians still argue whether Akbar possessed some mystical foresight about Khurram's destiny, or if his obvious favoritism simply shaped the prince's future through sheer force of imperial will. What's certain is that from his first breath, Khurram exists in an atmosphere of unprecedented privilege and artistic refinement. The Mughal court of 1592 represents the pinnacle of Indo-Islamic civilization. Persian poetry flows through palace corridors like incense. Master craftsmen from Samarkand and Isfahan create wonders that European ambassadors struggle to describe in their dispatches home. And the treasury overflows with wealth that makes contemporary European kingdoms seem like provincial backwaters. Yet for all this splendor, baby Khurram faces an unusual domestic arrangement. Following Mughal custom, and perhaps influenced by a palace fortune teller's prediction, he's entrusted to the care of Ruqayya Sultan Begum, Akbar's childless first wife. This remarkable woman, denied biological motherhood, pours her maternal instincts into raising the prince, who will one day build the world's most famous monument to married love. The irony isn't lost on palace observers. The future Emperor of Hearts learns his first lessons about devotion from a woman whose own marriage, while politically successful, never produced the children she desperately wanted. Perhaps this is where Khurram first understands that love and loss walk hand in hand, that the deepest affections often carry the heaviest sorrows. Ruqayya raises him with a tenderness that court chroniclers describe as almost divine. She teaches him not just the warrior skills expected of a Mughal prince, but also the gentler arts, poetry, music, and most importantly, the understanding that true strength often lies in the capacity for deep feeling rather than in the sword's edge. As young Khurram grows under Rukia's loving guidance, the empire around him pulses with creative energy. This is the era when Mughal architecture begins its evolution toward the sublime perfection it will achieve under his own reign. Master builders experiment with new techniques for working marble. Persian miniaturists perfect their craft to jewel-like precision, and the very air seems pregnant with possibilities. The prince's days unfold in carefully orchestrated lessons that would shame modern educational systems. Before most children learn to write their names, Khurram masters multiple languages, studies advanced mathematics, and receives instruction in both military strategy and artistic composition. Yet what sets him apart isn't his intellectual gifts, remarkable though they are, but rather his unusual emotional intelligence. Palace servants whisper about the young prince's extraordinary empathy. Unlike other royal children who treat subordinates as invisible, Khurram remembers names, asks about families, and shows genuine concern for others' welfare. This isn't political calculation. He's too young for such sophistication, but rather, the foundation for his future devotion to Mumtaz Mahal is being laid in these early years, stone by precious stone. Through Rukia's nurturing and Akbar's guidance, Khurram learns that true power lies not in commanding fear, but in inspiring love. He discovers that the greatest victories aren't won on battlefields, but in the hearts of those who choose to follow not from obligation, but from genuine affection. As 1592 draws to a close, baby Khurram sleeps peacefully in the palace nursery, unaware that his birth has set in motion a chain of events that will culminate in humanity's most beautiful expression of love triumphant over death. The marble quarries of Makrana rest undisturbed. The Yamuna River flows peacefully past the future site of Agra's greatest treasure. And somewhere in Persia, a little girl named Arjumand Banu Begum takes her first steps, though their paths won't cross for another 15 years. But already, the cosmic forces that create legends are aligning, preparing to write a love story in moonlight and marble that will outlast empires and touch hearts across centuries. You watch young Prince Khurram grow into adolescence with all the grace and complexity befitting a future Emperor of Hearts. By age 14, he stands tall among his royal brothers, distinguished not by arrogance, that common failing of princes, but by an artistic sensitivity that sets palace tongues wagging. While his siblings practice warfare with mechanical precision, Khurram approaches military strategy like a chess master composing symphonies, seeing patterns and possibilities that escape more conventional minds. The year 1607 finds him at a crossroads that will define not just his personal destiny, but the architectural legacy of an entire civilization. Under the watchful eyes of his grandfather Akbar, who despite advancing years maintains an almost mystical connection with this particular grandson, Khurram receives an education that blends the practical demands of empire with the refined sensibilities of a Renaissance prince. His tutors marvel at the young man's voracious appetite for knowledge. Persian poetry flows from his lips with the same fluency he demonstrates in Hindi, Arabic, and Turkic. He can discuss the finer points of astronomical observation with court mathematicians in the morning, then spend afternoons perfecting his swordsmanship with equal dedication. Yet what truly distinguishes him is his fascination with the building arts, an unusual passion for a prince expected to excel primarily in conquest and administration. Historians still debate whether this architectural obsession stems from Akbar's influence or represents some innate artistic calling. The young prince spends hours studying the construction of his grandfather's magnificent projects, asking detailed questions about load-bearing techniques, the properties of different stones, and the mathematical principles underlying perfect proportional harmony. Master builders find themselves explaining complex engineering concepts to a teenager who grasps advanced principles with startling intuition. Perhaps more significantly, Khurram demonstrates an emotional intelligence that court observers find both remarkable and slightly unsettling in one so young. He possesses an unusual capacity for empathy that extends beyond the typical royal concern for subjects' welfare. Palace servants note how he remembers personal details about their families, inquires about sick children, and shows genuine distress when learning of others' misfortunes. This sensitivity manifests most clearly in his relationship with his biological mother, Jagat Gosain. Although raised by Ruqayya Sultan Begum, Khurram maintains an intense devotion to the Rajput princess who gave him life. When palace protocol permits their interactions, observers witness a tenderness between mother and son that transcends typical royal formality. He addresses her as Hazrat in court chronicles, a title of profound respect, and seeks her counsel on matters both practical and personal. The prince's romantic nature begins emerging during these crucial formative years. Unlike his brothers, who view marriage primarily through the lens of political alliance, Khurram displays an almost unprecedented interest in the notion of companionate love. Court poets note his particular affinity for verses celebrating mutual devotion between spouses, highly unusual reading material for a Mughal prince expected to eventually maintain multiple wives for diplomatic reasons. His military training proceeds with predictable excellence. But even here, Khurram's unique character asserts itself. While mastering traditional cavalry charges and siege tactics, he demonstrates particular interest in the logistical challenges of moving large numbers of people and materials across vast distances. Other princes focus on battlefield glory. Khurram studies supply chains, construction techniques, and the complex coordination required for massive undertakings. This practical romanticism, if such a paradox can exist, hints at the extraordinary project that will one day consume 22 years of his life. Even at 14, he seems to understand intuitively that the grandest gestures require the most meticulous planning, that eternal beauty emerges from the marriage of inspired vision and patient craftsmanship. The empire surrounding young Khurram pulses with creative energy that will profoundly shape his aesthetic sensibilities. Mughal culture in 1607 represents a unique synthesis of Islamic, Persian, and Indian traditions, creating art forms that transcend their individual components. Master craftsmen from Samarkand work alongside Hindu stonecutters. Persian calligraphers collaborate with local metalworkers, and the resulting synthesis produces innovations that astonish contemporary observers. Palace life exposes the prince to this cultural flowering daily. He witnesses the creation of miniature paintings that capture entire universes in spaces smaller than his palm, observes metalworkers creating jewelry that seems to capture starlight in precious stones, and studies architectural plans that blend mathematical precision with aesthetic grace. These experiences plant seeds that will later bloom into humanity's most famous monument to love. Yet beneath the artistic refinement and military training, Khurram grapples with the complex emotional landscape of Mughal succession politics. His father Jahangir's marriage to Nur Jahan has shifted palace dynamics in ways that will profoundly impact the young prince's future. The new empress, brilliant and ambitious, begins favoring her son-in-law Shahryar Mirza as a potential heir, creating tensions that will eventually explode into open rebellion. For now, though, 14-year-old Khurram focuses on mastering the skills expected of a Mughal prince, while nurturing the artistic sensibilities that set him apart from typical royal offspring. He excels in his studies, demonstrates military prowess that earns veteran commanders respect, and maintains the emotional warmth that endears him to palace staff and visiting dignitaries alike. As 1607 progresses toward its fateful conclusion, the prince occasionally accompanies court entourages on official visits to Agra's bustling markets. These excursions, intended primarily as lessons in governance and economics, will soon yield an encounter that transforms not just his personal destiny, but the cultural heritage of humanity itself. The great love story that will inspire the Taj Mahal begins taking shape in these quiet moments of adolescent preparation. Khurram's unusual combination of artistic sensitivity, practical intelligence, and emotional depth creates the perfect conditions for a romance that will transcend typical royal marriages to become legend. His capacity for deep feeling, nurtured by Ruqayyah's maternal devotion and refined by exposure to the empire's greatest cultural achievements, prepares him for a love that will reshape stone into poetry and grief into eternal beauty. You step into the bustling heart of Agra's Grand Bazaar on a crisp morning in 1607, where destiny walks, disguised as routine commerce. The air thrums with the organized chaos of empire. Persian merchants displaying silk that seems to capture rainbows, Hindu craftsmen hammering gold into delicate filigree, and Muslim traders from distant Afghanistan offering lapis lazuli blue as deep as midnight skies. Prince Khurram, now 15, moves through this symphony of sights and sounds with the easy confidence of youth and royal privilege, unaware that fate is about to deal him a hand that will alter the course of architectural history. The marketplace represents everything magnificent about Mughal cosmopolitanism. Here, under the same canvas canopies, Christians from Goa examine Persian carpets, while Buddhist monks from Kashmir inspect rose attar from Kabul. Turkish artisans debate the merits of different steel with Arab sword makers, and Hindu mathematicians explain astronomical calculations to Jesuit priests. This is the world that has shaped young Khurram's understanding of beauty, complexity, and the profound truth that the most precious treasures often emerge from the meeting of different traditions. As the prince's entourage pauses at a particularly elegant stall displaying fine Persian textiles, history holds its breath behind flowing silk curtains that catch the morning light like captured aurora. A young woman arranges precious merchandise with the practiced grace of someone born to commerce yet destined for greatness. Arjuman Banu Begum, daughter of the wealthy Persian noble Asaf Khan, has accompanied her family on this trading expedition, a common practice for aristocratic Persian families seeking to expand their influence in the Mughal court. The moment their eyes meet transcends every poet's attempt to capture love at first sight. Court chroniclers, writing decades later, struggle with language itself to describe what witnesses observed. A future emperor stopped mid-stride by the glimpse of a young woman whose beauty seems to emanate from some source deeper than mere physical perfection. Arjuman, barely 14, possesses the kind of ethereal loveliness that Persian miniaturists spend lifetimes trying to capture. Dark eyes that seem to hold ancient wisdom, skin luminous as pearl, and a grace that transforms even the simple act of folding silk into something approaching ballet. But what truly captures Khurram's heart isn't just her extraordinary beauty. It's the intelligence that lights her face like candle flame, the dignity with which she conducts herself, despite being surrounded by the controlled chaos of the marketplace, and something indefinable that speaks to his soul in a language he's never heard, but somehow understands perfectly. Historians still argue whether their first exchange involved words, or merely the kind of communication that transcends speech entirely. What's certain is that within moments of this encounter, both young people understand that something irreversible has occurred. For Arjumand, raised in Persian traditions that celebrate the poetry of romantic love, this moment fulfills every verse she's memorized about souls recognizing their eternal companions. For Khurram, schooled in Mughal pragmatism, but secretly yearning for the kind of love celebrated in courtly literature, this encounter transforms abstract poetry into lived reality. The practical obstacles to their romance loom immediately obvious to both families. While Asaf Khan enjoys considerable wealth and influence, his daughter represents just one of many potential marriage alliances for a Mughal prince, expected to strengthen the empire through strategic unions. Royal marriages typically involve extensive negotiations about dowries, territorial agreements, and complex political calculations that have little to do with personal affection. Yet from this first meeting, both Khurram and Arjumand demonstrate the kind of patient determination that will later characterize their love story's most legendary aspects. They understand instinctively that great love requires great patience, that the most precious unions often demand the longest courtships, and that true devotion grows stronger rather than weaker when tested by time and circumstance. The immediate practical challenge involves arranging future meetings within the strict protocols governing interactions between unmarried young people of noble birth. Persian customs, while somewhat more liberal than some Islamic traditions, still require careful chaperoning and formal procedures for courtship. Mughal court etiquette adds additional layers of complexity, particularly when the suitor happens to be a prince whose marriage choices carry implications for imperial policy. Fortunately, the close relationship between their families provides a legitimate framework for continued contact. Asaf Khan's growing influence in Jahangir's court ensures regular palace visits, while his sister Nur Jahan's marriage to the emperor creates additional opportunities for the young people to encounter each other at court functions and family gatherings. These carefully orchestrated meetings reveal the depth of compatibility that transforms their initial attraction into something approaching spiritual union. Arjumand proves as intellectually gifted as she is beautiful, engaging in conversations about poetry, philosophy, and the arts with a sophistication that matches Khurram's own education. More importantly, she demonstrates the kind of emotional intelligence and strength of character that suggests she could serve not just as a beloved wife, but as a true partner in the complex challenges of imperial governance.
Their courtship unfolds against the backdrop of one of history's most culturally rich civilizations. The Mughal court of 1607 represents a unique moment when Persian refinement, Islamic scholarship, and Indian artistic traditions achieve unprecedented synthesis. Young people falling in love within this context have access to the world's finest poetry, music, and artistic expression as the natural backdrop for their romance. The influence of Persian literary traditions proves particularly significant for both young lovers. Arjumand, raised on the poetry of Hafez and Sa'di, understands romantic love as a spiritual discipline capable of revealing divine truth through human devotion. Khurram, educated in the same literary traditions, shares this understanding that true love transcends mere personal happiness to become a path toward higher consciousness and meaning. This philosophical framework transforms what might otherwise be simple adolescent infatuation into something far more profound and enduring. Their love develops intellectual and spiritual dimensions that will sustain it through decades of separation, political upheaval, and the complex challenges of ruling an empire. When they eventually marry, their union will represent not just the joining of two hearts, but the meeting of two minds, shaped by the finest cultural achievements of their civilization. As word of the prince's interest in Asaf Khan's daughter spreads through court circles, reactions range from approval to concern. Some courtiers applaud the potential match as politically advantageous, strengthening ties with the powerful Persian faction that increasingly influences imperial policy. Others worry about the young prince's obvious emotional investment in a single woman, fearing this intensity might complicate the diplomatic marriages typically expected of royal sons. You enter the delicate world of Mughal courtship, where love must navigate the intricate channels of imperial protocol, family honor, and political calculation. The 5 years between Prince Khurram's first glimpse of Arjumand Banu Begum and their eventual marriage in 1612 become a masterclass in patience, devotion, and the art of loving within the golden cage of royal expectations. The formal engagement process begins with the kind of elaborate diplomatic dance that characterizes all significant Mughal court relationships. Asaf Khan, Arjumand's father, finds himself in the enviable yet challenging position of having captured a prince's heart for his daughter. While such royal attention promises tremendous advancement for the family, it also carries risks. Disappointing a Mughal prince can prove as dangerous as pleasing him proves profitable. Emperor Jahangir views his son's romantic attachment with the bemused tolerance of a father who recognizes that young hearts will follow their own compass regardless of imperial preferences. Unlike some rulers who might forbid such emotional entanglements, Jahangir actually finds himself charmed by Khurram's obvious devotion. The emperor, himself no stranger to love's complexities, understands that a prince who can love deeply might also govern with greater wisdom and compassion. The engagement period allows both families to observe the couple's compatibility while managing the complex negotiations that accompany any significant royal marriage. These discussions involve not just the traditional elements of dowry and ceremony, but also questions about Arjuman's future role in court hierarchy, her family's political advancement, and the delicate balance between personal affection and imperial duty that will define their married life. For Khurram and Arjumand, these years become an exercise in communicating profound feeling through the carefully regulated channels available to them. Their meetings, always properly chaperoned and conducted within formal settings, develop their own rich language of glances, gestures, and carefully chosen words that carry far more meaning than their surface suggests. Persian poetry provides their primary vocabulary for expressing emotions too powerful for ordinary language. Court gatherings often feature recitations where young people can communicate through their choice of verses, their vocal emphasis on particular lines, and their responses to specific poetic themes. Arjumand's mastery of this subtle art equals Khurram's own, creating a form of conversation that operates simultaneously on public and private levels. The prince's growing reputation as a military commander adds another dimension to their courtship story. His successful campaigns against Rajput strongholds that had resisted even his grandfather Akbar demonstrate the kind of courage and strategic intelligence that will serve him well as emperor. Yet what distinguishes him from other successful military leaders is his unusual attention to minimizing civilian casualties and his post-victory clemency toward defeated enemies. Arjumand follows these military developments with the keen interest of someone who understands that her future husband's character is being tested, not just in victory, but in how he treats those who surrender to his power. His reputation for magnanimity and triumph, and his efforts to integrate conquered territories peacefully into the empire, reveal qualities that suggest he will prove equally thoughtful as a husband and father. Their correspondence, conducted through intermediaries and couched in the formal language required by court protocol, reveals the depth of intellectual compatibility that will sustain their love through decades of partnership. Historians still argue about whether specific letters and poems attributed to this period are authentic, but the overall picture emerges clearly. Two remarkably intelligent young people discovering that their minds complement each other as perfectly as their hearts. The waiting period also allows Arjumand to prepare for the extraordinary responsibilities that will accompany marriage to a future emperor. Under her family's guidance, she studies statecraft, imperial history, and the complex etiquette that governs Mughal court life. Unlike many royal brides who enter marriage focused primarily on personal happiness, Arjumand approaches her future role with the serious preparation of someone who understands that loving a prince means accepting the burden of helping to govern an empire. Palace observers note the young woman's remarkable grace under the intense scrutiny that accompanies royal courtship. Rather than being overwhelmed by the attention, she demonstrates the kind of dignified composure that suggests she possesses the temperament necessary for imperial life. Her interactions with court ladies, palace servants, and visiting dignitaries reveals someone who treats all people with appropriate respect, while maintaining the confident bearing expected of future royalty. For Khurram, these years of engagement provide opportunities to demonstrate his devotion through actions rather than just words. His choice to limit his romantic attention to Arjumand alone, highly unusual for a Mughal prince expected to eventually maintain multiple wives, sends a clear message about the nature of his feelings. While political marriages remain a future possibility, his obvious preference establishes Arjumand's position as his primary emotional attachment. The cultural context surrounding their courtship includes exposure to some of history's finest artistic achievements. The Mughal court of this period supports painters, musicians, and architects whose work influences artistic development across Asia and beyond. Growing up within this cultural flowering shapes both young people's aesthetic sensibilities and their understanding of how artistic beauty can express spiritual and emotional truth. Their shared appreciation for the arts becomes another foundation for their relationship. Both possess sophisticated understanding of miniature painting, music theory, and architectural principles. These common interests provide safe topics for conversation during formal meetings, while also revealing deeper compatibility in their approaches to beauty, harmony, and the role of artistic expression in human life. As the engagement period progresses, both families work to ensure that the eventual marriage will satisfy not just the couple's personal happiness, but also the political and social expectations that accompany royal unions. This involves complex negotiations about ceremony scale, guest lists, and the symbolic elements that will communicate appropriate messages about family status, imperial favor, and the couple's future role in court hierarchy. The waiting also builds anticipation that transforms their eventual wedding from simple ceremony into the kind of celebration that becomes legendary. By the time they finally marry in 1612, their romance has captured the imagination of the entire court, creating investment in their happiness that extends far beyond their immediate families. Most importantly, these 5 years allow their love to mature from adolescent infatuation into the kind of deep, tested affection that will sustain them through the complex challenges of imperial life. By learning to love within constraints, they develop the patience and understanding that will serve them well when future circumstances again test their devotion's strength. You witness one of history's most magnificent weddings unfold across the spring of 1612, as Prince Khurram and Arjumand Banu Begum finally unite in ceremonies that transform personal love into imperial spectacle. The celebration extends over several weeks, each event carefully orchestrated to honor both Persian and Mughal traditions, while announcing to the world that something extraordinary is beginning. The festivities commence with the formal betrothal ceremony, held in the palace's most splendid reception hall. Persian carpets from Isfahan cover marble floors that reflect the light of thousands of oil lamps, while incense burners release clouds of sandalwood and rose that seem to carry blessings toward heaven itself. Emperor Jahangir presides with obvious satisfaction, recognizing that this union will strengthen the Persian faction at court while satisfying his beloved son's romantic desires. Arjumand appears at her betrothal ceremony like a vision from Persian poetry made manifest. Her wedding ensemble, crafted by the empire's finest artisans, incorporates gold thread embroidery so intricate it seems to capture sunlight in permanent form. Precious stones from across the known world, emeralds from Egypt, rubies from Burma, pearls from the Persian Gulf, adorn her in patterns that speak of both earthly wealth and spiritual significance. Yet what captures observers' attention isn't the magnificent clothing or priceless jewelry, but the radiant happiness that transforms the young woman into something approaching divine beauty. Court chroniclers struggle to find language adequate for describing her appearance, eventually settling on comparisons to celestial beings and natural phenomena. The first moon of spring, the morning star reflected in still water, gardens blooming after long drought.
Prince Khurram, resplendent in robes of silk and cloth of gold, moves through the ceremonies with the kind of profound joy that makes even hardened courtiers remember their own capacity for wonder. His happiness proves so infectious that the entire celebration takes on an almost mystical quality, as if witnessing the union of two souls destined from creation to find each other. The wedding ceremonies proper begin several days later, with rituals that honor the religious and cultural traditions of both families. Islamic marriage rites, conducted by the empire's most learned scholars, sanctify their union within the framework of divine law. The nikah ceremony, performed before hundreds of witnesses, establishes their marriage as not just a personal commitment, but a sacred covenant that places their love under heaven's protection.
Persian customs add layers of meaning that speak to the cultural synthesis that defines Mughal civilization at its peak. The groom's family presents gifts that read like an inventory of the empire's wealth. Chests filled with gold coins, bolts of silk that shimmer like captured aurora, weapons whose hilts sparkle with embedded gems, and manuscripts illuminated by the finest calligraphers in the known world. The bride price negotiations, conducted with diplomatic precision, result in agreements that secure Arjuman's family's position for generations while demonstrating Khurram's commitment through tangible sacrifice. The amounts involved, historians still debate the exact figures, represent not just personal wealth, but investments in political alliance and family honor that will influence court dynamics for decades. What distinguishes this wedding from typical royal marriages is the obvious genuine affection between bride and groom. Instead of the formal politeness that characterizes most arranged unions, observers witness interactions that sparkle with mutual delight, shared humor, and the kind of comfortable intimacy that usually develops only after years of marriage. Their first official appearance as husband and wife occurs during the ceremonial presentation to the emperor, where Jahangir formally welcomes Arjumand into the royal family, while bestowing upon her the title Mumtaz Mahal, meaning chosen one of the palace or jewel of the palace. This naming ceremony carries profound significance, as imperial titles aren't mere formalities, but declarations of status that influence how the entire court will treat their recipient. The name Mumtaz Mahal proves prophetic in ways that no one present can imagine. The young woman who receives this title will indeed become the palace's most precious jewel, but more importantly, she will inspire the creation of a monument that transforms her memory into humanity's most famous expression of love's triumph over death. The wedding celebrations continue with entertainments that showcase the empire's cultural achievements. Master musicians perform compositions created specifically for the occasion, their melodies weaving Persian classical traditions with Indian ragas to create something entirely new. Dancers trained in both Central Asian and local styles perform pieces that tell stories of legendary lovers, creating artistic parallels that situate Khurram and Mumtaz within a tradition of great romantic devotion. Palace poets compose verses that capture not just the beauty of the occasion, but its historical significance. These works, many of which survive in palace archives, reveal how contemporary observers understood that they were witnessing something that transcended typical royal weddings. The language consistently emphasizes themes of eternal love, spiritual union, and destiny fulfilled, concepts that will prove remarkably prescient given the couple's future story. The culinary aspects of the celebration demonstrate the kind of logistical mastery that will later characterize Shah Jahan's great architectural projects. Cooks from across the empire prepare dishes that represent the full range of Mughal cuisine, Persian rice preparations that seem to capture saffron's golden essence, Indian curry techniques that transform simple ingredients into complex symphonies of flavor, and sweets so delicate they seem more like edible jewelry than mere dessert. European ambassadors present at the wedding write detailed accounts that reveal how the celebration impressed even representatives of courts accustomed to luxury. Their letters describe levels of artistic refinement and organizational sophistication that challenge European assumptions about Asian civilization, while noting the unusual atmosphere of genuine happiness that permeates the entire event.
The symbolic elements incorporated into various ceremonies speak to the couple's future role in imperial governance, while celebrating their personal love. Exchange of flowers follows ancient traditions that invoke divine blessings on fertility and happiness, while the sharing of specially prepared foods creates spiritual bonds that transcend mere legal contracts. As the formal wedding period concludes, the young couple embarks on married life within the unique context of Mughal court culture. Their private apartments in the palace become a haven where personal affection can flourish within the public demands of imperial life. Contemporary accounts suggest that their domestic happiness quickly becomes legendary among palace staff, who observe interactions marked by mutual respect, intellectual compatibility, and obvious delight in each other's company. You join the newlyweds as they embark on what might be history's most romantic military campaigns, transforming the traditionally harsh business of imperial conquest into shared adventures that deepen their love while expanding their empire. The early years of their marriage, from 1612 to 1622, unfold against the backdrop of military expeditions that take them across the subcontinent, each campaign becoming another chapter in their developing partnership. Their first major journey together leads to the Deccan Plateau, where Khurram has been assigned to complete the subjugation of rebellious sultans who threaten Mughal authority in southern India. Rather than leaving his bride behind in Agra's comfort, the prince makes the unprecedented decision to bring Mumtaz Mahal with him, establishing a pattern that will define their entire marriage. This choice surprises court observers and delights romantic poets, who recognize in it something unprecedented in Mughal royal tradition. The logistical challenges of moving an imperial army, accompanied by a royal bride, require the kind of detailed planning that will later characterize Khurram's architectural projects. The expedition includes not just soldiers and artillery, but portable palaces, traveling workshops, and mobile libraries that ensure the couple can maintain appropriate royal dignity even in remote wilderness locations. Master craftsmen accompany the army to create temporary structures worthy of imperial occupation, while skilled cooks ensure that even campaign meals reflect the culinary sophistication expected at court. Mumtaz Mahal's presence transforms the entire character of these military expeditions. Instead of the typical atmosphere of masculine camaraderie, focused solely on conquest and glory, the campaigns develop a more nuanced quality that balances martial necessity with cultural refinement. Evening entertainments feature poetry readings and musical performances that remind soldiers of the civilization they're fighting to preserve and extend. The young empress proves remarkably adaptable to campaign life, demonstrating the kind of resilient strength that complements her ethereal beauty. Rather than complaining about primitive conditions or demanding special accommodations that might slow the army's progress, she embraces the adventure with enthusiasm that earns veteran soldiers' respect. Her ability to maintain royal dignity while accepting campaign hardships reveals character depths that justify Khurram's obvious devotion. Their tent, larger and more elaborate than typical military accommodations, but still modest compared to palace standards, becomes a mobile court where important decisions are made and visiting dignitaries are received. Contemporary accounts describe how the couple's obvious happiness creates an atmosphere that makes even hardened military commanders remember the gentler emotions that war often forces them to suppress. The strategic aspects of these campaigns reveal Khurram's developing genius for the kind of complex coordination that will later produce the Taj Mahal. Moving large armies across difficult terrain while maintaining supply lines, managing local political relationships, and adapting tactics to regional conditions requires exactly the same skills needed for massive construction projects. Detailed planning, flexible response to unexpected challenges, and the ability to coordinate thousands of workers toward common goals. Mumtaz Mahal's role in these expeditions extends far beyond mere companionship. Her intelligence and diplomatic skills prove invaluable in negotiations with local rulers.
particularly in situations where her presence signals imperial commitment to treating defeated enemies with appropriate honor. Her ability to speak multiple languages and understand different cultural traditions helps smooth the complex political arrangements that follow military victories. The couple's happiness becomes legendary among the army, creating morale effects that contribute to their consistent military success. Soldiers fighting for a commander who has found joy in his personal life approach their duties with greater enthusiasm than those serving leaders consumed by ambition alone. The prince's obvious care for his wife's welfare during the hardships of campaign life demonstrates the kind of concern for others' well-being that makes him a more effective leader. Their travels together expose them to the architectural wonders that inspire their developing aesthetic sensibilities. Ancient temples carved from living rock, fortress palaces that seem to grow from mountain cliffs, and irrigation systems that transform deserts into gardens, all contribute to their understanding of how human creativity can reshape the natural world. These experiences plant seeds that will later bloom in their own monumental building projects. The Deccan campaigns introduce them to artistic traditions that will influence the eventual design of the Taj Mahal. Local craftsmen, specializing in inlay work, stone carving, and metalworking, demonstrate techniques that complement Mughal artistic traditions while adding distinctive regional elements. The couple's exposure to these diverse skills contributes to their later ability to coordinate artisans from across the known world in service of a single magnificent vision. Their romantic interludes, stolen between battles and diplomatic negotiations, acquire an almost legendary quality among contemporary observers. Persian poets attached to the army compose verses celebrating how love flourishes even amid war's harsh realities, while court historians note the unusual harmony that characterizes their relationship despite the stresses of constant travel and military responsibility. The practical challenges of campaign life teach both newlyweds lessons that will serve them well during the even greater logistical challenges of ruling an empire. Mumtaz Mahal learns to manage complex household arrangements under primitive conditions, while maintaining the dignity expected of royal ladies. Khurram develops skills in coordinating diverse groups of people, working toward common goals, while attending to countless details that could derail larger projects if handled carelessly. Their return journeys to Agra between campaigns become triumphant processions that celebrate not just military victory, but the success of their unconventional approach to royal marriage. Crowds gather to witness the prince and princess, who have transformed military expeditions into romantic adventures, while poets compose verses celebrating their devotion as an example worthy of emulation by ordinary couples. These early campaign experiences establish patterns that will define their entire relationship: shared adventure, mutual support during challenges, and the ability to find joy together regardless of external circumstances. The trust they develop while facing dangers and hardships together creates bonds that will prove strong enough to sustain them through the even greater trials that await during their imperial reign. As their campaign years continue, both partners mature from romantic newlyweds into seasoned partners capable of handling the complex demands of imperial leadership, while maintaining the personal connection that transforms their marriage from political alliance into legendary love story. You observe the remarkable transformation of Arjuman Banu Begum into Mumtaz Mahal, jewel of the palace, as she evolves from beloved bride into the most influential woman in one of history's greatest empires. The years following their marriage reveal depths of character and capability that justify not just her husband's devotion, but her emergence as a true partner in imperial governance. The Empress's daily routine reflects the extraordinary balance she maintains between traditional royal femininity and unprecedented political influence. Her mornings begin before dawn with private prayers and Quranic study, practices that ground her in spiritual discipline while preparing her for the complex ethical decisions that accompany imperial power. Persian poetry and literature occupy her breakfast hours, maintaining connections to the cultural traditions that shaped her youth, while refining sensibilities that will later influence artistic patronage. What distinguishes Mumtaz Mahal from other royal wives is the systematic way she prepares herself for governmental responsibilities, typically reserved for male relatives. Her study schedule includes imperial law, military strategy, economic theory, and diplomatic history, subjects that most royal women of her era never encounter. Yet she approaches this education not as a challenge to traditional feminine roles, but as preparation for supporting her husband more effectively in his imperial duties. The Empress's apartments become an informal court where petitioners seek her intervention in matters ranging from family disputes to commercial disagreements. Her reputation for wisdom and fairness draws visitors from across the empire, creating a parallel administrative structure that handles cases requiring delicate judgment rather than rigid legal application. Contemporary accounts describe how she listens to complex problems with patience that amazes even experienced courtiers, while offering solutions that satisfy justice without destroying relationships. Her involvement in imperial decision-making evolves gradually but persistently. Initially consulted about matters affecting court ladies and household management, she demonstrates such sound judgment that Khurram begins seeking her counsel on increasingly significant issues. Her insights prove particularly valuable in diplomatic situations where understanding different cultural perspectives can mean the difference between successful negotiation and costly military intervention. The trust between husband and wife reaches unprecedented levels when Khurram begins sharing state correspondence with her, eventually granting her use of the imperial seal, a privilege normally reserved for the emperor's closest male advisors. This extraordinary mark of confidence reflects not just personal affection, but professional recognition of capabilities that enhance rather than threaten royal authority. Mumtaz Mahal's influence extends beyond formal governmental functions into the cultural realm, where royal patronage shapes artistic development across the empire. Her support for Persian poetry and Islamic scholarship creates opportunities for creative work that might otherwise lack imperial backing. Master calligraphers, miniature painters, and textile designers find in her a patron who combines aesthetic sophistication with practical understanding of how artistic production can strengthen cultural identity. Her charitable activities develop into systematic programs that address social problems with the kind of organized efficiency characteristic of effective governance. Rather than limiting herself to random acts of personal generosity, she establishes institutions that provide ongoing support for widows, orphans, and other vulnerable populations. These programs demonstrate the same attention to detail and long-term planning that characterizes successful imperial administration. The Empress's relationship with palace staff reveals character qualities that explain her lasting influence on those who serve her. Unlike many royal women who treat servants as invisible, she learns names, remembers family details, and shows genuine concern for their welfare. This personal attention creates loyalty that extends beyond mere professional duty, establishing networks of support that prove invaluable during times of political uncertainty. Her approach to motherhood reflects the same thoughtful preparation she brings to other responsibilities. Rather than leaving child-rearing entirely to wet nurses and tutors, she takes active interest in her children's education and character development. Contemporary accounts describe how she combines affectionate maternal care with serious attention to preparing royal children for their future roles in imperial governance. The military campaigns she accompanies with Khurram provide opportunities to demonstrate resilience that complements her intellectual capabilities. Far from being a delicate ornament requiring constant protection, she adapts to campaign hardships with grace that earns veterans' respect.
Her presence during battles and sieges sends powerful messages about imperial commitment, while providing moral support that enhances army morale.
Her diplomatic skills prove particularly valuable in negotiations with female relatives of conquered rulers, situations where male envoys might struggle to communicate effectively. Her ability to understand women's concerns about their family's welfare after defeat helps create agreements that satisfy honor requirements while establishing lasting peace. These successes contribute to the empire's stability by reducing the likelihood of future rebellions motivated by unresolved grievances. The Empress's intellectual partnership with her husband creates synergies that enhance both their individual capabilities. His military and administrative talents combine with her diplomatic and cultural insights to produce governmental approaches that balance practical effectiveness with attention to the human costs of imperial policies. Their private discussions about complex problems develop solutions that neither might reach independently. Palace observers note the unusual harmony that characterizes their marriage despite the enormous pressures of imperial responsibility. Rather than competing for influence or struggling over conflicting priorities, they develop complementary roles that maximize their combined effectiveness while maintaining the personal affection that sustains them through challenging periods. The Empress's growing reputation for wisdom and compassion creates an image that enhances the imperial family's legitimacy throughout the empire. Subjects who might otherwise view royal authority with suspicion or resentment develop emotional investment in an imperial couple whose obvious mutual devotion and concern for their people's welfare reflects ideals that transcend mere political expediency. Her influence on imperial policies becomes particularly evident in the more humane treatment of conquered populations and the greater attention paid to subjects' welfare in governmental decision-making. While military necessity still drives many imperial actions, her counsel helps ensure that policies consider long-term consequences for social stability and cultural preservation. As the years pass, Mumtaz Mahal emerges as not just the emperor's beloved wife, but as a true partner whose contributions to imperial governance justify the unprecedented trust placed in her. Her transformation from beautiful bride into influential stateswoman creates a model of royal marriage that balances personal happiness with public responsibility. You witness the pivotal moment when Prince Khurram transforms into Emperor Shah Jahan in 1628, ascending the peacock throne through a succession struggle that tests both his military prowess and his partnership with Mumtaz Mahal. The transition from prince to emperor brings new pressures and responsibilities that could strain even the strongest marriage. Yet their love deepens as they face these challenges together. The death of Emperor Jahangir in October 1627 triggers the kind of succession crisis that has plagued Mughal history since Babur founded the dynasty. Unlike European monarchies, where primogeniture typically determines inheritance, Mughal tradition requires princes to prove their worthiness through demonstrated capability and political support. This system, while preventing incompetent rulers from inheriting power, also guarantees violent conflicts that can tear empires apart. Khurram faces formidable opposition from his youngest brother, Shahryar Mirza, who enjoys the backing of the powerful Empress Nur Jahan and controls significant military resources. The succession struggle becomes a test not just of military skill, but of the political alliances and personal loyalties that Khurram and Mumtaz Mahal have cultivated during their years of shared service to the empire. Mumtaz Mahal's role during this crucial period demonstrates how completely she has become her husband's partner in all aspects of imperial leadership. While convention might require royal women to remain safely distant from succession struggles, she actively participates in the political and strategic decisions that determine their fate. Her insights into court personalities and her relationships with influential nobles prove invaluable as they navigate the complex alliances that will decide the empire's future. The military campaigns that secure Khurram's victory reveal the tactical genius that will later coordinate the massive construction project of the Taj Mahal. His ability to move armies swiftly across vast distances
coordinate complex supply lines, and adapt strategies to changing circumstances demonstrates exactly the same skills required for managing the thousands of artisans and tons of materials that monumental architecture demands. Victory comes at a terrible personal cost that foreshadows the ruthless decisions that imperial power sometimes requires. Following Mughal precedent, Shah Jahan orders the execution of potential rivals, including his brother Shahryar, and several cousins whose survival might threaten future stability. These killings, politically necessary but emotionally devastating, create burdens of guilt and sorrow that only Mumtaz Mahal's unwavering support helps him bear. The coronation ceremonies that formally establish Shah Jahan as the fifth Mughal emperor showcase the cultural sophistication that will define his reign. Persian traditions blend with Islamic ceremony and Indian pageantry to create celebrations that announce a new era of imperial grandeur. Mumtaz Mahal's role in these ceremonies establishes her unprecedented position as not just empress, but as true partner in imperial governance. Their early years as emperor and empress coincide with what historians consider the golden age of Mughal civilization. The empire's boundaries reach their greatest extent. Trade flourishes along routes that connect Asia with Europe and Africa, and cultural achievements in architecture, painting, and literature reach levels that influence artistic development far beyond India's borders. Shah Jahan's architectural ambitions emerge immediately upon his accession, beginning with projects that demonstrate both aesthetic vision and the organizational capabilities that will culminate in the Taj Mahal. The Red Fort in Delhi, the Jama Masjid, and numerous palace renovations reveal his developing mastery of the complex coordination required for monumental construction, while establishing the aesthetic principles that will guide his greatest work. Mumtaz Mahal's influence on these early building projects proves significant, as her refined aesthetic sensibilities help shape design decisions that balance masculine power with feminine grace. The architectural elements that will later distinguish the Taj Mahal, delicate floral inlays, perfectly proportioned arches, and the interplay of solid structure with decorative detail, begin appearing in projects undertaken during these early imperial years. The Empress's governmental responsibilities expand as her capabilities become more widely recognized throughout the imperial administration. Her daily schedule includes audiences with provincial governors, reviews of judicial decisions, and participation in the complex diplomatic negotiations that maintain peace with neighboring kingdoms. Foreign ambassadors report to their home courts about the unusual influence wielded by the Mughal Empress, noting capabilities that challenge conventional assumptions about women's roles in Islamic governance. Their private relationship provides a sanctuary of personal happiness amid the enormous pressures of imperial responsibility. Palace servants describe interactions between emperor and empress that sparkle with humor, intellectual stimulation, and obvious physical affection, despite the formal protocols that govern most of their public appearances. Their ability to find joy together, despite ruling an empire of over 100 million people, creates emotional stability that enhances their effectiveness as leaders. The birth of their children during these early imperial years adds new dimensions to their partnership, while creating additional challenges for balancing personal and public responsibilities. Unlike many royal couples who delegate child-rearing entirely to servants, Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal take active interest in their children's education and character development, understanding that future imperial stability depends partly on preparing the next generation for leadership responsibilities. Their approach to parenthood reflects the same thoughtful planning that characterizes their governmental and architectural projects. Rather than leaving their children's education to chance or tradition, they design curricula that balance military training with cultural refinement,
ensuring that future princes and princesses will possess the intellectual and emotional capabilities required for enlightened leadership. The empire they govern together represents humanity at its most sophisticated and cosmopolitan. Trade routes carry goods and ideas between civilizations, creating cultural exchanges that enrich artistic and intellectual development throughout the known world. The capital cities of Agra and Delhi become magnets for talented individuals from across Asia and beyond, establishing the human resources that will later make possible the coordination required for building the Taj Mahal. As their imperial reign progresses, both Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal mature into leaders whose personal happiness enhances rather than distracts from their public responsibilities. Their love story becomes inseparable from the empire's golden age, creating conditions that will make possible the architectural achievement that immortalizes their devotion for all time. You enter the most fertile and joyous period of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal's marriage, as their love manifests in the creation of 14 children who embody both their personal happiness and their hopes for the empire's future. Each pregnancy becomes a celebration of their continued devotion, while the challenges of raising royal children in the complex world of Mughal politics reveal new depths of their partnership. The Empress's approach to motherhood defies contemporary expectations for royal women of her era. Rather than delegating child-rearing entirely to wet nurses and tutors while maintaining ceremonial distance from domestic concerns, Mumtaz Mahal involves herself intimately in every aspect of her children's development. Her apartments become a vibrant nursery where imperial dignity coexists with maternal warmth, creating an atmosphere that palace visitors find both impressive and surprisingly touching. Contemporary accounts describe how the Empress personally supervises her children's earliest education, ensuring that princes and princesses alike receive instruction that balances traditional Islamic learning with the broader cultural knowledge expected of future imperial leaders. Her insistence that daughters as well as sons learn multiple languages, study mathematics and astronomy, and develop artistic skills reflects progressive views about women's capabilities that will influence Mughal court culture for generations. Shah Jahan's devotion to his growing family becomes legendary throughout the empire. Unlike many rulers who view children primarily as political assets or succession insurance, he demonstrates genuine delight in fatherhood that transforms palace life. Court chroniclers note his habit of interrupting important meetings to spend time with young children, his patience with their questions and demands for attention, and his obvious pride in their developing personalities and abilities. The imperial couple's parenting philosophy emphasizes character development alongside intellectual achievement. They understand that future imperial stability depends not just on producing heirs with the technical skills needed for governance, but on raising children whose moral development will enable them to use power responsibly. This approach requires personal involvement that many royal parents prefer to avoid, but Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal embrace these responsibilities as natural extensions of their love for each other. Their eldest daughter, Jahanara Begum, emerges as a particular source of pride and hope for both parents. Born in 1614, she demonstrates intellectual gifts and strength of character that suggests she will become a significant figure in her own right. Her parents' decision to provide her with an education equivalent to that given to princes reflects their belief that women can contribute meaningfully to imperial governance when given appropriate preparation. The birth of Prince Dara Shikoh in 1615 brings special joy as the couple's first son and presumptive heir to the imperial throne. From his earliest years, the prince displays the kind of philosophical temperament and artistic sensitivity that his parents hope will make him an enlightened ruler. His education becomes a careful balance of military training, administrative preparation, and cultural refinement, designed to produce a leader capable of governing the empire's diverse populations with wisdom and justice. Prince Shah Shuja's birth in 1616 adds another potential successor, while revealing the challenges that multiple male heirs create for Mughal succession planning. Unlike European primogeniture systems that automatically designate the eldest son as heir, Mughal tradition requires emperors to evaluate their sons' capabilities and choose successors based on merit rather than birth order. This system, while promoting competent leadership, also creates potential for fraternal rivalry that could threaten imperial stability. The arrival of Princess Roshanara Begum in 1617 further enriches the imperial family while providing Mumtaz Mahal with another daughter to educate in the complex skills required for royal women. The Empress's approach to raising daughters emphasizes both traditional feminine accomplishments and the intellectual development that will enable them to serve as advisors and confidants to their future husbands and brothers. Prince Aurangzeb's birth in 1618 introduces a personality that will eventually reshape the empire's destiny in ways his parents cannot foresee. From early childhood, the prince displays the kind of serious, disciplined temperament that suggests future leadership capability, though his religious orthodoxy and rigid character contrast sharply with his parents' more flexible approach to governance and personal relationships. The birth of additional children, including Prince Murad Bakhsh in 1624 and Princess Gauharara Begum in 1631, demonstrates the continued vitality of the imperial couple's relationship while adding complexity to family dynamics that must balance personal affection with political calculation. Each child represents both private joy and public responsibility, as their development will influence the empire's future stability and prosperity.
Mumtaz Mahal's ability to bear children successfully while maintaining her active role in imperial governance amazes contemporary observers and challenges conventional assumptions about women's capabilities. Her pregnancies, rather than reducing her political influence, seem to enhance her authority as embodiment of imperial fertility and divine blessing. Court poets celebrate each birth as evidence of heaven's favor toward the dynasty, while acknowledging the empress's strength in fulfilling both maternal and governmental duties. The imperial nurseries become centers of cultural innovation, where traditional Mughal child-rearing practices blend with Persian educational traditions and contemporary pedagogical insights. Master teachers from across the empire compete for opportunities to educate royal children, creating educational programs that represent the finest intellectual resources available in the early modern world. Family life in the imperial palace develops rhythms that balance public ceremonial requirements with private domestic happiness. Despite the formal protocols that govern most royal interactions, observers note the obvious warmth and affection that characterize relationships between parents and children. The emperor and empress find ways to maintain intimate family connections despite the enormous pressures of governing an empire that spans most of the Indian subcontinent. The children's upbringing reflects their parents' understanding that future imperial success depends on producing leaders who can navigate an increasingly complex world where military conquest alone no longer guarantees political stability. Their educational programs emphasize diplomatic skills, cultural sensitivity, and the intellectual flexibility required for governing diverse populations, while maintaining the religious and ethical foundations that legitimize Mughal authority. As the imperial family grows, both Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal develop deeper appreciation for the precious fragility of domestic happiness amid the harsh realities of political power. Their awareness that their children's futures will be shaped by forces beyond parental control, including succession struggles, foreign threats, and the unpredictable changes that affect all empires, adds poignancy to their determination to provide loving guidance while they can. You accompany the imperial court as it embarks on what will become the final journey that Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal share together, the fateful Deccan campaign of 1631 that promises military glory but delivers instead the greatest tragedy of their lives. The expedition begins with all the pageantry and optimism that typically characterizes Mughal military ventures. Yet beneath the surface, subtle signs hint at the sorrow that awaits. The strategic importance of this campaign cannot be overstated in the context of Mughal imperial ambitions. The Deccan sultanates Ahmadnagar, Bijapur, and Golconda
represent the last significant resistance to complete Mughal dominance over the Indian subcontinent. Their subjugation would fulfill the imperial dream of unifying all of India under one rule while securing the enormous wealth that flows through the region's trade routes connecting the interior with coastal ports. Mumtaz Mahal's decision to accompany her husband on this campaign, despite being pregnant with their 14th child, reflects the pattern of shared adventure that has defined their marriage. At 38, she remains as devoted to their partnership as she was at 19, unwilling to let imperial duties separate them even temporarily. Her presence provides Shah Jahan with the emotional support and practical counsel that have made their collaboration so effective throughout their reign. The imperial army that moves south from Agra represents military organization at its most sophisticated level. More than 100,000 soldiers march in carefully coordinated formations, supported by artillery trains, supply columns, and the portable workshops that maintain weapons and equipment during extended campaigns. The logistics required for moving this enormous force across hundreds of miles while keeping it fed, equipped, and ready for battle demonstrate exactly the same organizational capabilities that will later coordinate the thousands of artisans working on the Taj Mahal. The Empress travels in a magnificent palanquin designed to provide comfort befitting her station while protecting her from the rigors of campaign life. Yet contemporary accounts emphasize her adaptability to military conditions and her continued participation in the strategic discussions that guide campaign decisions. Her ability to maintain royal dignity while accepting the hardships of war continues to inspire the admiration of veterans who have served through multiple imperial expeditions. The journey south takes them through regions where earlier Mughal campaigns have already demonstrated imperial power, yet local populations still require careful management to prevent rebellions that could threaten supply lines or divert military resources from primary objectives. The Empress's diplomatic skills prove particularly valuable in negotiations with local rulers, whose cooperation can mean the difference between smooth progress and costly delays. As the army advances deeper into the Deccan, the physical challenges of the campaign begin taking their toll on all participants. The region's climate, more demanding than the northern plains where most court members feel comfortable, tests endurance levels, while seasonal weather patterns create additional logistical complications. The Empress, now in the later stages of pregnancy, faces particular difficulties, yet continues displaying the resilient strength that has characterized her approach to all challenges. The military aspects of the campaign proceed according to established Mughal patterns of siege warfare and diplomatic negotiation. Fortified cities that might resist direct assault often surrender when faced with overwhelming force, while local rulers calculate whether alliance with the empire offers better prospects than continued resistance. Shah Jahan's reputation for treating surrendered enemies with honor encourages submission, while his known severity toward those who resist unnecessarily discourages futile defiance. The imperial court that travels with the army maintains the cultural sophistication expected of Mughal civilization, even under campaign conditions. Evening entertainments feature poetry readings that celebrate military victories, while maintaining connections to the artistic traditions that define imperial identity. Master musicians perform compositions that boost morale, while demonstrating the cultural achievements that justify imperial expansion. Mumtaz Mahal's continued involvement in governmental decision-making, despite her advancing pregnancy, amazes observers and reinforces her extraordinary status within the imperial hierarchy. Her daily consultations with her husband about campaign strategy, political appointments, and the complex administrative decisions that keep the empire functioning demonstrate partnership that transcends typical royal marriages. The approach to Burhanpur, the Deccan's most important city, marks the campaign's climactic phase. This fortress city controls crucial trade routes while serving as the region's political and cultural center. Its capture would effectively complete Mughal conquest of the Deccan, while providing a strategic base for future operations against remaining independent territories. Yet, as the army establishes siege positions around Burhanpur, the Empress begins experiencing the complications that will transform personal triumph into imperial tragedy. The physical stresses of campaign life, combined with the natural challenges of pregnancy at age 38, create conditions that medical knowledge of the era proves inadequate to address effectively. Palace physicians, skilled in the herbal remedies and surgical techniques available in 1631, find themselves facing obstetric complications that exceed their capabilities. The Empress's condition, initially manageable, deteriorates in ways that contemporary medical understanding cannot fully explain or effectively treat. Modern medical knowledge suggests that problems like postpartum hemorrhage or infection, manageable today, could prove fatal when occurring far from urban medical facilities. The irony of the situation deepens the eventual tragedy's emotional impact. The military campaign succeeds brilliantly, with Burhanpur's surrender completing the Deccan's subjugation and fulfilling imperial ambitions that have driven Mughal policy for decades. Yet, this public triumph coincides with private crisis that will shatter the emperor's world and transform his understanding of victory's true meaning. As June 1631 progresses, the contrast between campaign success and personal anxiety creates tensions that affect the entire court. Military officers celebrate their achievements while noting their emperor's obvious concern for his wife's welfare. The empress herself, despite increasing discomfort, continues participating in official functions and maintaining the dignified composure that has always characterized her public appearances. The stage is set for events that will transform a successful military campaign into the emotional catastrophe that motivates history's most famous architectural monument. The love story that began with a chance encounter in Agra's marketplace approaches its earthly conclusion in a military tent far from home, preparing to create the conditions that will inspire humanity's most beautiful expression of love, triumphant over death. You witness the most heartbreaking night in Mughal imperial history as complications during childbirth steal away the empire's most beloved empress in the sweltering heat of Burhanpur's summer. June 17, 1631, begins like any other day of successful military campaign. But before dawn breaks again, the Mughal Empire will be plunged into mourning that reshapes its destiny forever. The Empress has been experiencing labor pains since the previous evening, attended by the Empire's finest physicians and the experienced midwives, who have safely delivered her 13 previous children. Initially, the birth proceeds normally despite the challenging conditions of giving birth in a military encampment far from the palace's comfortable facilities. Court physicians, while concerned about conducting a royal delivery under campaign conditions, express confidence that Mumtaz Mahal's previous successful pregnancies indicate no unusual complications should arise. The baby, Princess Gauharara Begum, arrives safely after what witnesses describe as particularly difficult labor lasting over 30 hours. The infant's healthy cries initially bring relief to everyone present, as successful delivery seems to indicate that both mother and child have survived the ordeal without serious complications. Court officials prepare announcements celebrating the birth of another imperial princess, while Shah Jahan expresses gratitude for his wife's safe delivery. Yet, within hours, the situation deteriorates with frightening rapidity. Mumtaz Mahal begins experiencing the massive postpartum hemorrhaging that 17th century medicine possesses no effective means to control. The bleeding, initially manageable according to contemporary medical understanding, quickly exceeds the capabilities of even the empire's most skilled physicians to stanch or treat effectively. Palace doctors resort to every remedy known to Islamic and Hindu medical traditions: herbal preparations designed to promote clotting, surgical techniques for controlling bleeding, and prayer-based healing practices that appeal to divine intervention when human knowledge proves insufficient. Yet nothing they attempt manages to halt the hemorrhaging that steadily weakens the empress, despite their desperate efforts to save her life. Shah Jahan's anguish during these crucial hours becomes legendary among those present to witness it. The emperor, who has commanded armies and governed vast territories, finds himself completely powerless to protect the person he loves most. His desperate attempts to summon additional medical assistance, his offers of enormous rewards for anyone who can save his wife's life,
and his obvious emotional devastation create scenes that reduce hardened military veterans to tears.
Princess Jahanara, the imperial couple's 17-year-old daughter, demonstrates remarkable maturity during this crisis by organizing prayers and charitable distributions intended to invoke divine mercy for her mother's recovery. Her distribution of precious gems to the poor represents traditional Islamic practice for seeking heavenly intervention during medical emergencies, while her leadership in coordinating these efforts reveals character strengths that will serve her well during the difficult years ahead. The Empress herself, despite her weakening condition, maintains the dignified composure that has always characterized her approach to challenges. Contemporary accounts describe how she uses her remaining strength to provide final instructions about her children's welfare, express gratitude for the happiness she has known with Shah Jahan, and offer the spiritual counsel that has always been her gift to those around her during difficult times. Her final words to her husband, preserved in multiple court chronicles, reveal the depth of understanding that has characterized their partnership. Rather than focusing on her own suffering or fear of death, she speaks about their shared memories, expresses confidence in his ability to continue governing wisely without her, and makes him promise to commemorate their love in some permanent form that will inspire future generations to value the kind of devoted marriage they have shared. The Empress's death, occurring in the early morning hours of June 18th, after nearly 40 hours of struggle, creates immediate shockwaves that ripple through the entire imperial camp. The woman, who has been the emotional center of the Mughal court, the trusted advisor whose counsel has influenced major governmental decisions, and the beloved wife whose happiness has sustained the emperor through the challenges of ruling a vast empire, has vanished with sudden finality that no one present feels prepared to accept. Shah Jahan's immediate reaction to his wife's death transcends conventional expressions of imperial grief. Court chroniclers describe how the emperor, upon realizing that Mumtaz Mahal has died, collapses with emotional devastation so complete that observers initially fear he too might die from shock. His cries of anguish, heard throughout the military camp, announced to everyone that something irreplaceable has been lost forever.
The practical challenges of managing imperial dignity while accommodating profound personal grief create additional complications during these crucial first hours. The court must maintain appropriate ceremonial protocols for honoring a deceased empress while dealing with an emperor so devastated that he cannot initially function in his official capacity. Senior administrators and military commanders must coordinate imperial business while their sovereign struggles with grief that threatens to overwhelm his ability to govern. The immediate aftermath involves complex decisions about funeral arrangements, under the difficult circumstances of being hundreds of miles from appropriate burial facilities. Islamic tradition requires rapid burial, yet the Empress's status demands ceremonies befitting her position, while practical considerations limit what can be accomplished in a military camp lacking proper resources for imperial funerals. The temporary burial in Burhanpur's Zainabad garden represents a compromise between religious requirements and practical limitations, with understanding that these arrangements serve only until proper, permanent interment can be arranged in Agra. The simple grave markers that initially mark the Empress's resting place contrast sharply with the elaborate tomb that will eventually house her remains. Yet even these temporary arrangements receive the most careful attention possible under challenging circumstances. The Emperor's grief during the days immediately following Mumtaz Mahal's death becomes so profound that court physicians worry about his physical health. His refusal to eat, his inability to sleep, and his obvious emotional devastation create concerns that the empire might lose its ruler along with its beloved empress. Senior court officials begin discussing contingency plans for managing imperial governance should Shah Jahan prove unable to resume his duties.
The military campaign that brought them to Burhanpur continues successfully, with subordinate commanders completing the conquest that the imperial couple had undertaken together. Yet the triumph feels hollow without the Empress's presence to share in celebrating their achievement. Victory has been achieved, but at a cost that transforms success into the deepest sorrow the empire has ever experienced. As news of Mumtaz Mahal's death spreads throughout the empire, spontaneous expressions of mourning demonstrate how deeply the Empress had touched the hearts of her subjects. From palace servants to provincial governors, from common soldiers to wealthy merchants, people throughout the empire expressed genuine grief for a woman who had somehow made them feel personally connected to the imperial family's happiness.
You watch an emperor's world collapse as Shah Jahan confronts the devastating reality that the woman who gave meaning to his existence has vanished forever, leaving him to navigate the remainder of his life through an emotional landscape transformed into perpetual winter. The immediate aftermath of Mumtaz Mahal's death reveals the true depth of their connection, as the emperor who commands millions discovers that imperial power provides no protection against the universal human experience of irreplaceable loss. The first days following the Empress's death pass in a haze of disbelief that gradually gives way to comprehension of an altered reality too painful to accept. Shah Jahan, who has never faced any challenge he could not overcome through intelligence, determination, or sheer force of will, finds himself confronting the one enemy that cannot be defeated, negotiated with, or bribed into submission. Death has claimed his greatest treasure, and all his imperial power proves worthless for retrieving what has been lost. Court physicians document the emperor's physical deterioration during this period with clinical precision that only emphasizes the emotional devastation underlying his obvious health decline. Within days of Mumtaz Mahal's death, the vigorous man who had led military campaigns and governed a vast empire transforms into someone barely recognizable. His thick black hair whitens completely, as if winter has claimed his head overnight, while his previously erect posture gives way to the hunched bearing of someone carrying unbearable weight. The emperor's refusal to participate in normal activities creates unprecedented challenges for imperial administration. Senior court officials, accustomed to consulting their sovereign about major decisions, find themselves forced to manage governmental functions while their ruler remains too devastated to focus on anything beyond his personal loss. The empire continues functioning through institutional momentum and bureaucratic competence, but the absence of imperial guidance creates anxiety among administrators who understand that significant decisions cannot be postponed indefinitely. Religious advisors attempt to console the emperor by reminding him that Islamic teaching regards intense mourning as natural and appropriate, while also emphasizing that excessive grief can interfere with religious obligations and imperial duties. Yet, their theological counsel proves inadequate against sorrow so profound that it seems to have altered the emperor's fundamental relationship with existence itself. He appears to experience Mumtaz Mahal's death not just as personal loss, but as evidence that life's foundations are far more fragile than he had ever imagined. The court's attempts to maintain normal ceremonial functions while accommodating the emperor's grief creates situations that highlight the unprecedented nature of his emotional response. State occasions that would typically require imperial presence proceed without their central figure, while diplomatic meetings and administrative hearings must be postponed or handled by subordinates lacking authority to make binding decisions. The efficient machinery of Mughal governance begins showing signs of strain as key decisions accumulate without imperial resolution. Shah Jahan's withdrawal from public life extends beyond mere neglect of ceremonial duties to encompass abandonment of the personal pleasures that had previously brought him satisfaction. Music, which had always provided emotional release and aesthetic enjoyment, becomes intolerable because its beauty reminds him of shared experiences with Mumtaz Mahal. Poetry, previously a source of intellectual stimulation and cultural connection, now seems to mock his loss by celebrating emotions he no longer expects to experience again. The emperor's changed relationship with luxury reveals how completely his worldview has been altered by grief. The magnificent clothing, exquisite jewelry, and precious objects that symbolize imperial dignity lose all meaning for someone who discovers that life's greatest treasure cannot be replaced by any amount of material wealth. Court servants note his indifference to food, regardless of how carefully prepared, and his obvious lack of interest in surroundings that previously brought aesthetic pleasure. Most significantly, the emperor begins displaying the kind of obsessive focus that will eventually culminate in the Taj Mahal's creation. His initial inability to function gives way to intense preoccupation with finding some permanent way to honor Mumtaz Mahal's memory and express the love that death has prevented him from continuing to demonstrate through daily action. This fixation, initially worrying to court observers, who fear it represents unhealthy denial of reality, gradually evolves into the focused determination that will drive history's greatest architectural project. The emperor's relationship with his children becomes both source of comfort and reminder of loss during this difficult period. While their presence provides evidence that his marriage to Mumtaz Mahal created lasting legacies beyond their personal happiness, interacting with them also emphasizes the absence of the woman who had been their primary guide and protector. His efforts to fulfill both paternal and maternal roles for children who share his loss reveal strength he did not know he possessed, while also highlighting the impossibility of replacing what they have lost together.
Palace staff observe the emperor's gradual emergence from complete devastation toward functional grief that allows resumption of essential imperial duties, while maintaining permanent alteration of his personality and priorities. The man who returns to governmental responsibilities several months after Mumtaz Mahal's death resembles his former self in capability and intelligence, but his emotional warmth has been replaced by dedicated efficiency that suggests profound internal changes. The emperor's renewed engagement with administrative duties reveals how grief has refined his sense of what matters most in governmental decision-making. His post-bereavement approach to ruling demonstrates increased concern for policies that affect families and heightened sensitivity to the human costs of imperial actions. The suffering he has experienced seems to enhance his empathy for subjects who face their own losses and struggles, creating more thoughtful approaches to governance. Letters and official documents from this period reveal writing style that has become more formal and less personal, as if the emperor has learned to function professionally while keeping his deeper emotions carefully protected from further injury. His official correspondence handles complex imperial business with continued competence, while revealing nothing of the internal landscape that grief has created. The gradual crystallization of his determination to build an unprecedented monument begins emerging through conversations with court architects and inquiries about construction techniques that suggest major projects under consideration. What initially appears to be general interest in building programs gradually reveals itself as focused planning for something far more ambitious and emotionally significant than typical imperial architecture. As 1631 draws to its close, the emperor who began the year as the happiest man in his empire starts transforming into someone whose greatness will ultimately derive from his ability to channel devastating loss into creative achievement that honors love while accepting its earthly limitations. The foundation for humanity's most beautiful monument to love has been laid in the depths of imperial grief. You enter the fevered landscape of Shah Jahan's imagination as grief transforms into creative vision, and the devastated emperor begins conceiving a monument that will capture in stone the eternal love that death cannot destroy. His dreams of building something worthy of Mumtaz Mahal's memory evolve from desperate attempts to deny loss into systematic planning for architecture that transcends mere commemoration to become a spiritual statement about love's ultimate triumph over mortality. The emperor's initial architectural fantasies emerge from conversations with court poets who try to console him by suggesting that great love deserves permanent artistic expression. What begins as metaphorical language about building monuments gradually develops into serious consideration of how human craftsmanship might create something approaching the beauty of the woman whose memory haunts his every waking moment. These early discussions reveal an emperor willing to dedicate unlimited resources toward achieving the impossible, translating emotional and spiritual beauty into physical form. Islamic theology provides the conceptual framework that transforms personal grief into religious architecture through the Quranic promise that paradise houses souls in perfect beauty for eternity. The emperor's growing obsession with creating an earthly replica of Mumtaz Mahal's celestial dwelling reflects both spiritual faith and artistic ambition that seek to make divine promise visible through human craftsmanship. His vision encompasses not just a tomb, but a complete paradise garden where earthly beauty hints at heavenly perfection. The emperor's conversations with master architects reveal how his artistic vision has been developing throughout his life, drawing inspiration from every beautiful building he has encountered during military campaigns and official visits. His detailed knowledge of construction techniques, mathematical proportions, and decorative arts, previously demonstrated through intelligent patronage of palace renovations, now focuses with laser intensity on creating something that surpasses all previous architectural achievement. Historians still debate whether the Taj Mahal's design emerged from Shah Jahan's personal vision or represents collaborative creation involving the empire's finest architects and artists. What seems certain is that the emperor's emotional investment in the project creates unprecedented motivation for achieving perfection in every detail. His willingness to spend unlimited time and money while accepting no compromises establishes conditions that allow artistic ambition to flourish without normal practical constraints. The emperor's study of existing Mughal tombs reveals both inspiration and determination to surpass all previous funerary architecture. Humayun's tomb in Delhi, Akbar's mausoleum at Sikandra, and the exquisite Itmad-ud-Dawla's tomb in Agra each contribute elements that will influence the Taj Mahal's design, while also demonstrating limitations that the emperor feels determined to transcend. His vision encompasses architecture that will make all previous tombs seem like preliminary sketches for the ultimate expression of love, commemorated in stone. The integration of paradise symbolism into architectural planning reflects the emperor's desire to create not just a beautiful building, but a complete spiritual environment that evokes the Quranic descriptions of celestial gardens. The fourfold garden design, flowing water channels, and careful selection of plants that bloom in different seasons will create earthly paradise that changes constantly while maintaining eternal beauty. A perfect metaphor for love that transcends death while continuing to grow and deepen. The emperor's insistence on using only the finest materials available anywhere in the known world establishes the logistical framework that will make the Taj Mahal a truly international project. White marble from Rajasthan's Makrana quarries will provide the primary building material, while precious and semi-precious stones from across Asia and beyond will create the intricate inlay work that transforms structural surfaces into jeweled poetry. This global sourcing reflects both imperial wealth and artistic vision that recognizes no geographical or financial limitations. The mathematical precision that will characterize the Taj Mahal's proportions emerges from the emperor's understanding that perfect beauty requires perfect harmony in all relationships between architectural elements. His collaboration with court mathematicians to develop geometric principles that govern everything from overall dimensions to the smallest decorative details reflects spiritual belief that divine beauty manifests through mathematical perfection that mirrors the orderly structure of creation itself. The emperor's planning for craftsman recruitment demonstrates his understanding that achieving unprecedented architectural beauty requires unprecedented human resources. His determination to gather master artisans from the Islamic world's greatest centers of artistic excellence, Isfahan, Istanbul, Bukhara, and Baghdad, while also drawing upon India's finest traditional craftsmen, creates the conditions for cultural synthesis that will distinguish the Taj Mahal's unique aesthetic achievement. The symbolic elements incorporated into the architectural design reflect the emperor's desire to create multiple layers of meaning that honor both Mumtaz Mahal's personal qualities and the universal truths about love and loss that their story represents. Quranic verses, carved into marble surfaces, will offer spiritual comfort to visitors, while also proclaiming Islamic faith in resurrection and eternal life. Floral motifs will celebrate the earthly beauty that first attracted him to his beloved, while also symbolizing paradise gardens where souls reunite in perfect joy. The emperor's consideration of how the building will appear at different times of day and in different seasons reveals his understanding that great architecture must change constantly while maintaining eternal identity. The Taj Mahal's white marble surfaces will capture and reflect light in ways that make the building seem alive, shifting from silver to rose to gold as sun and moon traverse the sky above Agra's plains. This dynamic quality will ensure that each visit offers new revelations, while the essential beauty remains constant. The integration of acoustic design principles demonstrates the emperor's attention to sensory experiences beyond mere visual beauty. The central dome's interior will amplify whispered prayers, while creating the kind of reverberant sound environment that makes speech seem to emanate from heaven itself. This attention to sound design reflects spiritual understanding that architecture should engage all human senses in creating experiences that lift consciousness toward divine beauty. As the emperor's vision crystallizes into practical plans that can guide actual construction, his transformation from grief-stricken widower into focused architectural patron becomes apparent to court observers. The man who seemed broken by loss has discovered purpose that gives meaning to continued existence, while creating conditions for achievement that will outlast the empire that makes it possible. The preliminary designs that emerge from these months of intensive planning reveal architecture that balances structural innovation with decorative sophistication, creating building concepts that will challenge the finest craftsmen while inspiring them to achieve their greatest work. The Taj Mahal's conception represents the meeting of unlimited emotional motivation with unlimited practical resources, creating the perfect conditions for humanity's most beautiful architectural achievement. You witness the extraordinary assemblage of humanity's greatest craftsmen as Shah Jahan's architectural vision begins attracting master builders, artists, and artisans from across the known world. The emperor's determination to create unprecedented beauty requires unprecedented human resources, and his recruiters fan out across the Islamic world and beyond to gather talents capable of transforming dreams into marble reality. The primary architect, Ustad Ahmad Lahari, emerges as the perfect choice to coordinate this massive undertaking. Born in Lahore to a family of Persian architects who have served Mughal emperors for generations, he combines intimate knowledge of Islamic architectural traditions with innovative engineering skills that enable him to solve the complex structural challenges that the emperor's vision demands. His previous work on the Red Fort demonstrates both aesthetic sophistication and practical competence that inspires imperial confidence in his ability to manage history's most ambitious construction project. The recruitment process reveals the extraordinary scope of international cooperation that the Taj Mahal's construction will require. Master craftsmen from Isfahan bring expertise in the delicate tilework and geometric pattern making that distinguish Persian architectural decoration. Turkish architects contribute knowledge of dome construction techniques developed for Istanbul's greatest mosques. Central Asian specialists in lapidary work and stone carving add skills refined through generations of creating architectural jewels for Samarkand and Bukhara's magnificent buildings. Indian master builders contribute equally important capabilities, particularly in the quarrying and working of marble, that will provide the Taj Mahal's primary building material. The Rajasthani craftsmen who understand Makrana marble's unique properties, its translucent quality that allows light to penetrate slightly below the surface, creating the ethereal glow that will distinguish the finished monument, bring knowledge that no foreign expert could duplicate. Their techniques for cutting, shaping, and joining marble blocks with precision that makes seams virtually invisible represent skills developed through centuries of temple and palace construction. The coordination of these diverse talents requires the kind of systematic organization that will characterize every aspect of the Taj Mahal's construction. Language barriers must be overcome through interpreters and visual demonstration techniques, while different cultural approaches to craftsmanship must be synthesized into unified aesthetic vision. The Emperor's personal involvement in these coordination efforts demonstrates his understanding that great architecture emerges from successful collaboration among masters who might otherwise compete rather than cooperate.
The workshop systems established to support construction operations represent industrial organization on a scale unprecedented in the medieval world. Specialized facilities for different crafts, stone cutting, metalworking, carpentry, and textile production create what amounts to a complete manufacturing city dedicated to producing everything needed for the monument's construction. These workshops must maintain quality standards that satisfy imperial expectations while coordinating production schedules that keep thousands of workers productively employed. The mathematical challenges involved in the Taj Mahal's design require collaboration between architects and court mathematicians to develop geometric principles that ensure perfect proportional relationships throughout the structure. The complex calculations needed to design the central dome, coordinate the four minarets' positioning, and create the intricate geometric patterns that will decorate interior surfaces push contemporary mathematical knowledge to its limits while establishing new standards for architectural precision. European craftsmen contribute specialized skills that complement Islamic and Indian traditions, particularly in the area of precious metalworking and gem cutting that will create the monument's most spectacular decorative elements. Venetian masters of glassmaking and Florentine experts in pietra dura inlay work bring techniques that will enhance the building's jewel-like quality while demonstrating the international character of the Emperor's artistic vision. The logistics of gathering and coordinating these human resources create challenges almost as complex as the architectural problems they will solve. Master craftsmen must be convinced to leave established workshops and prestigious commissions in their home countries to join an uncertain venture in a foreign land. Housing, beading, and managing thousands of specialists from different cultures requires administrative systems that rival those needed for military campaigns. The Emperor's personal interviews with potential master craftsmen reveal his sophisticated understanding of artistic capabilities and his ability to inspire excellence through direct communication of his vision. Contemporary accounts describe how Shah Jahan's obvious emotional investment in the project motivates craftsmen to attempt achievements beyond their normal capabilities. His willingness to provide unlimited resources for experimentation and refinement creates workshop conditions that allow artistic innovation to flourish. The contractual arrangements developed for managing this diverse workforce establish precedents for large-scale construction project management that influence building practices throughout the Islamic world. Payment systems that reward quality as well as productivity encourage craftsmen to focus on excellence rather than speed, while job security guarantees that extend throughout the project's anticipated duration enable workers to develop skills and techniques specifically for Taj Mahal construction. The cultural exchanges that result from bringing together craftsmen from across the known world create unexpected innovations, as different traditions influence each other in productive ways. Persian geometric design principles combine with Indian floral motifs to create decorative styles that transcend their individual sources. Turkish structural engineering techniques adapt to accommodate Indian marble working traditions, producing construction methods that maximize both beauty and durability. The educational programs established to train local workers in specialized techniques ensure that the Taj Mahal's construction will enhance India's overall artistic capabilities while creating the monument. Master craftsmen from abroad take apprentices from local communities, transferring knowledge that will influence Indian artistic development for centuries. This knowledge transfer represents one of the project's most valuable long-term benefits, even beyond its primary architectural achievement. The selection of site supervisors and project coordinators reveals the emperor's understanding that successful construction requires not just artistic skill, but also leadership capabilities that can maintain motivation and coordination among thousands of workers over many years. The men chosen for these crucial roles combine technical competence with personal qualities that enable them to manage complex human relationships while maintaining focus on quality standards that cannot be compromised. As this unprecedented assembly of human talent takes shape, the practical foundation for creating the Taj Mahal moves from dream toward reality. The emperor's success in attracting the world's finest craftsmen to his project demonstrates both the power of imperial resources and the compelling nature of artistic vision that promises to create something worthy of humanity's greatest achievements. You stand beside Shah Jahan as he surveys the perfect bend in the Yamuna River, where earth seems to meet sky in divine harmony, selecting the precise location where love will be transformed into eternal architecture. The choice of site represents far more than practical construction considerations. It embodies spiritual geography that will make the Taj Mahal's beauty inseparable from its natural setting, while ensuring that the monument achieves the transcendent quality the emperor's vision demands. The land the emperor chooses sits on the Yamuna's right bank, slightly elevated above the river's normal flood level, while remaining close enough to water to create the perfect reflection that will double the building's visual impact. This natural platform, formed by millennia of river deposits and seasonal flooding, provides the ideal foundation for massive construction, while offering the kind of riverside setting that Mughal architectural theory considers essential for paradise gardens that mirror celestial beauty. The existing structures on the chosen site require complex negotiations that reveal both imperial power and the emperor's attention to honorable dealing with current property owners. The land belongs to Raja Jai Singh, a Rajput nobleman whose family has served the Mughal Empire with distinction for generations. Rather than simply claiming the property through imperial prerogative, Shah Jahan insists on fair compensation that satisfies both legal requirements and personal honor, understanding that the monument's spiritual significance requires ethical foundation. The emperor's decision to orient the main building toward the river rather than following conventional practice of facing Mecca demonstrates innovative architectural thinking that prioritizes the monument's relationship with its natural setting. This orientation ensures that the Taj Mahal will be visible from the emperor's palace across the river, while creating the perfect viewing angle for the reflection that makes the building seem to float on water, like a vision of paradise touching earth. The site's topographical features provide natural advantages that the architectural design will exploit to maximum effect. The gentle slope toward the river creates optimal drainage, while allowing the monument to dominate its surroundings without appearing to overwhelm them. The elevated position ensures visibility from great distances, while the riverside location provides the constant water presence that Islamic tradition associates with paradise gardens. The survey work required to establish precise boundaries and measure the site's dimensions employs mathematical techniques that push contemporary engineering knowledge to its limits. Imperial astronomers collaborate with master builders to establish geographical orientations that align the building with celestial movements, while ensuring that architectural proportions achieve the perfect harmony that the emperor's vision demands. This scientific precision provides the foundation for artistic achievement that will seem miraculous to future observers. The relationship between the chosen site and the broader landscape creates viewing opportunities that transform the entire region into a stage for architectural drama. The monument's position ensures that travelers approaching Agra from any direction will eventually see the Taj Mahal rising above the river like a vision of heavenly beauty manifesting on earth. This visibility from multiple approaches maximizes the building's impact while creating the sense of pilgrimage that befits a sacred site. Water management systems needed to support the Paradise Gardens require engineering solutions that demonstrate the sophisticated hydraulic knowledge that enables Mughal builders to create artificial water features that seem completely natural. The site's elevation above the river provides gravitational pressure for fountains, while its proximity to water ensures adequate supply for the extensive irrigation that will maintain gardens year-round. These practical systems will remain invisible while enabling the constant water presence that makes paradise imagery concrete. The security considerations that influence site selection reflect the emperor's understanding that the monument will contain treasures requiring protection, while also needing to remain accessible to visitors who will come to appreciate its beauty. The location's relationship to existing military installations provides defensive advantages, while the open approaches ensure that the building's magnificence can be appreciated without obstruction. The emperor's personal connection to the chosen site emerges through his regular visits during the selection process, as he spends hours walking the land at different times of day to understand how changing light affects its visual qualities. His obvious emotional investment in finding the perfect location demonstrates how completely the monument has become his primary focus, replacing all other interests with single-minded dedication to honoring Mumtaz Mahal's memory through unprecedented beauty.
The ceremonial aspects of site selection include religious rituals that seek divine blessing for the project, while also establishing the spiritual foundation that will make the Taj Mahal more than mere architecture. Islamic prayers consecrate the ground, while traditional ceremonies invoke the natural forces, earth, water, air, and fire, that will be harmonized in the completed monument. These spiritual preparations ensure that construction begins with proper reverence for the sacred nature of the undertaking. As the emperor finalizes his choice and begins the legal processes that will transfer ownership, the transformation of agricultural land into the foundation for humanity's most beautiful monument begins in earnest. The site that will soon host unprecedented architectural achievement reveals no hint of its destiny beyond the natural beauty that made it perfect for the emperor's purposes. You witness history's most ambitious construction project begin as the first ceremonial brick is laid in 1632, inaugurating 22 years of labor that will transform the emperor's grief into humanity's most sublime architectural achievement. The groundbreaking ceremony marks not just the beginning of construction, but the start of a cultural phenomenon that will coordinate international craftsmanship, revolutionary engineering, and artistic innovation on a scale never before attempted. The initial earthwork required to prepare the construction site demonstrates the massive scale of what the emperor has undertaken. Thousands of laborers work for months to level the chosen area, excavate foundations deep enough to support unprecedented structural loads, and create the precise geometric relationships that will govern every aspect of the monument's final appearance. This preparatory work, invisible in the finished building, represents engineering achievements that rival the more visible architectural accomplishments. The foundation design employs techniques that push contemporary construction knowledge to its limits, while establishing new standards for structural stability that will enable the Taj Mahal to survive centuries of earthquakes, floods, and human conflicts. Deep wells sunk into the riverbank provide water for maintaining the wooden logs that form part of the foundation system, ensuring that these crucial structural elements remain stable despite the challenging soil conditions near the Yamuna River. The geometric precision required to establish the monument's basic proportions involves mathematical calculations of extraordinary sophistication. Master builders and court mathematicians collaborate to create measurement systems that ensure perfect symmetry in every relationship between architectural elements. The central dome's position, the four minarets' placement, and the garden's proportional relationships must be established with accuracy that allows no margin for error once construction proceeds. The logistics of material procurement create what amounts to an economic revolution, affecting trade routes throughout Asia and beyond. Contracts for white marble from Rajasthan's Makarana quarries require coordinating the output of multiple quarries over many years, while maintaining quality standards that accept only the finest stone. The rejection rates for marble blocks, some estimates suggest that 3/4 of quarried stone fails to meet imperial standards, demonstrate the uncompromising approach to quality that characterizes every aspect of the project. The transportation systems developed to move materials from distant sources to the construction site represent innovations in logistics that influence trade and engineering practices throughout the empire. The road improvements, bridge construction, and river navigation enhancements required to deliver tons of marble, precious stones, and other materials create infrastructure benefits that extend far beyond the monument's immediate needs. The workshop complexes, established at the construction site, grow into what resembles a complete city dedicated to creating architectural perfection. Specialized facilities for different crafts must coordinate their activities while maintaining the security required for protecting valuable materials and preventing theft of precious decorative elements. The administrative systems needed to manage these complex operations rival those required for governing entire provinces. The human resources management challenges created by coordinating thousands of workers from different cultural backgrounds require innovations in organizational psychology that establish new models for large-scale project leadership. Language barriers, cultural differences, and varying skill levels must be harmonized into productive collaboration while maintaining quality standards that satisfy imperial expectations. The first structural elements to rise above ground level reveal the monument's extraordinary ambitions as massive marble blocks are fitted together with precision that makes joining seams virtually invisible. The construction techniques employed, including the use of metal clamps, precise cutting that requires no mortar, and interlocking systems that create structural integrity through geometric design rather than mere weight, demonstrate engineering sophistication that amazes contemporary observers. The emperor's personal involvement in construction oversight reveals the depth of his emotional investment in achieving perfection in every detail. His daily site visits, detailed examination of completed work, and willingness to order rebuilding when results fail to meet his standards create cost and time considerations that would be prohibitive for any project motivated by purely practical concerns. The quality control systems, established to ensure that every element meets imperial standards, create waste levels that seem shocking by modern efficiency standards, but enable achievement of beauty that justifies any cost. Rejected marble blocks, remade decorative elements, and reconstructed sections represent the price of perfection that the emperor willingly pays to honor his beloved's memory appropriately. The cultural exchanges that result from bringing together craftsmen from across the known world create artistic innovations that transcend their individual traditions. Persian geometric design principles adapt to accommodate Indian floral sensibilities, while Islamic calligraphy techniques adjust to work with Indian marble carving traditions. These cultural syntheses produce decorative styles that could only emerge from this unique international collaboration. The security measures required to protect valuable materials and prevent sabotage create what amounts to a military operation surrounding the construction site. Guards patrol constantly, while access controls ensure that only authorized personnel can approach areas where precious stones and metals are being installed. These security concerns add complexity and cost, while demonstrating the enormous value of materials being incorporated into the structure. The seasonal rhythms that govern construction activities
reflect the challenges of working with marble and other sensitive materials under India's varying climate conditions. Monsoon rains halt certain types of work, while the extreme heat of summer requires modified schedules that protect both materials and workers. These natural limitations extend construction timelines while also creating the measured pace that allows craftsmen to achieve their finest work. The economic impact of the project extends throughout the empire as demand for materials, tools, and specialized services stimulates trade and manufacturing in regions far from Agra. The Taj Mahal's construction creates employment for hundreds of thousands of people, while generating technological innovations that benefit other construction projects throughout the Islamic world. As the first year of construction concludes, the basic structural framework begins revealing the monument's ultimate form, while the decorative work that will consume most of the remaining 21 years awaits the completion of load-bearing elements. The Emperor's vision starts becoming three-dimensional reality as grief transforms into architectural beauty that will outlast the empire that makes it possible. You marvel at the extraordinary logistics required to transport entire mountains of marble across hundreds of miles while creating new highways and supply chains that rival the construction of the monument itself. The movement of materials for the Taj Mahal represents one of history's greatest logistical achievements, coordinating the output of quarries, forests and mines throughout Asia, while creating transportation infrastructure that transforms the empire's economic geography. The Makrana marble quarries of Rajasthan become the primary source for the translucent white stone that will give the Taj Mahal its ethereal beauty. These quarries, located over 200 miles from Agra, must expand their operations dramatically to meet imperial demands while maintaining the quality standards that accept only the finest stone. The quarrying techniques required to extract perfect blocks without damaging the marble's crystalline structure push contemporary mining knowledge to its limits. The elephant highways created specifically for transporting marble blocks represent engineering achievements that complement the monument's architectural innovations. These specially constructed roads must be wide enough for elephant trains, carrying massive stone blocks while maintaining gradients that don't exceed the capabilities of heavily loaded pack animals. Bridge construction, road surfacing, and way station establishment create infrastructure that will benefit trade and transportation long after the Taj Mahal's completion. The elephant corps assembled for material transportation becomes the largest such operation in recorded history, with contemporary accounts suggesting that over 1,000 elephants work continuously to move stone from quarries to construction site. These magnificent animals, trained specifically for heavy hauling, can carry marble blocks weighing several tons while maintaining the careful pace required to prevent damage to precious materials during transportation. The selection and preparation of marble blocks at the quarries requires quality control standards that amaze even experienced stoneworkers. Imperial inspectors examine each block for flaws invisible to untrained observers, rejecting stones that fail to meet standards for color consistency, translucent quality, and structural integrity. The waste rates, with some estimates suggesting that 4 out of 5 quarried blocks are deemed unsuitable, demonstrate the uncompromising approach to quality that characterizes every aspect of the project. The water transportation systems developed to move materials along river routes create innovations in barge design and river navigation that influence commercial shipping throughout the empire. Specially constructed vessels, capable of carrying enormous weights while maintaining stability in varying water conditions, enable efficient movement of materials that would be impossible to transport over land. These river highways reduce transportation costs while creating alternative routes that enhance the empire's overall infrastructure. The procurement of precious and semi-precious stones from across the known world creates international trade relationships that connect the Taj Mahal's construction with commercial networks spanning from Tibet to Turkey. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, jade from China, coral from the Red Sea, and mother of pearl from the Indian Ocean require coordination with merchants and rulers throughout Asia, while maintaining delivery schedules that keep craftsmen productively employed. The metalworking requirements for the monument's decorative elements necessitate the establishment of specialized workshops that represent technological innovations in brass, bronze, and precious metalworking. The intricate inlay work that will adorn interior surfaces requires metals prepared to specifications that exceed anything previously attempted, pushing metallurgical knowledge toward new levels of precision and beauty. The timber procurement for scaffolding, construction equipment, and architectural elements creates demand that affects forest management throughout northern India. Specialized woods required for different construction purposes, including sandalwood for decorative work and teak for structural elements, must be harvested, seasoned, and transported while maintaining quality standards appropriate for imperial construction.
The glass and crystal requirements for windows and decorative elements establish new trade relationships with craftsmen in Venice and other European centers of glass-making excellence. These materials, requiring careful packaging and slow transportation to prevent breakage, represent some of the most challenging logistical elements of the entire project, while adding crucial decorative components that enhance the monument's jewel-like quality. The rope and rigging needed for construction operations require specialized manufacturing that draws upon shipbuilding traditions from throughout the Indian Ocean region. The pulleys, levers, and lifting devices needed to position massive stone blocks at heights exceeding 200 feet push contemporary engineering knowledge, while creating equipment that will influence construction techniques throughout the Islamic world. The food supply systems required to feed thousands of workers create agricultural demand that stimulates farming throughout the region, while establishing distribution networks that must function reliably, regardless of seasonal variations or political disruptions. The kitchens established to prepare meals for this enormous workforce represent catering operations on a scale previously associated only with major military campaigns. The water supply and waste management systems needed to support construction operations and worker housing create engineering challenges that require innovations in hydraulic design and sanitary engineering. The wells, systems, and drainage systems established to maintain healthy working conditions demonstrate sophisticated understanding of public health principles, while providing infrastructure that will serve the completed monument's long-term needs. The security requirements for protecting valuable materials during transportation create escort systems that coordinate military protection with commercial transportation while maintaining schedules that keep construction activities on track. The guards, route planning, and communication systems needed to prevent theft or sabotage represent military operations that parallel the logistical achievements they protect. The communication networks established to coordinate activities at quarries, workshops, and construction sites require messenger services and administrative systems that rival those needed for imperial governance. The constant flow of information about material quality, delivery schedules, and construction progress creates bureaucratic innovations that influence administrative practices throughout the empire. The seasonal coordination required to maintain construction momentum despite monsoon rains, extreme heat, and other climatic challenges creates scheduling systems that balance optimal working conditions with continuous progress toward completion. The timing of different construction phases to take advantage of favorable weather while protecting sensitive materials demonstrates project management sophistication that anticipates modern construction practices. As the massive material flows converge on Agra, the transformation of the construction site into what resembles a complete industrial city becomes apparent to contemporary observers. The coordination of diverse materials, technologies, and human resources creates synergies that enable architectural achievement impossible under normal circumstances, while establishing new standards for what human collaboration can accomplish when motivated by unlimited devotion. You witness master builders solve seemingly impossible engineering challenges as they raise the central dome that will kiss the clouds, while defying gravity through mathematical precision and structural innovation that pushes architectural knowledge beyond all previous limits.
The dome's construction represents the Taj Mahal's greatest technical achievement, requiring coordination of geometry, physics, and craftsmanship that creates what appears to be stone, made weightless through divine intervention. The dome's design challenges begin with the basic problem of supporting enormous weight at a height of nearly 250 feet, while maintaining the perfect proportional relationships that the emperor's aesthetic vision demands. The structural system employed, a double-shell design that combines an inner dome optimized for interior acoustic and visual effects with an outer dome shaped for external appearance, represents innovation that influences architectural development throughout the Islamic world. The mathematical calculations required to achieve perfect circular geometry at this scale push contemporary knowledge of advanced mathematics to its limits. Court mathematicians work with master builders to develop measurement systems that ensure the dome's curvature maintains absolute consistency, while the supporting drum achieves perfect cylindrical form. The precision required, with tolerances measured in fractions of inches across spans of hundreds of feet, demands accuracy that amazes even modern engineers. The scaffolding systems needed to support construction at these heights require engineering innovations that create what amounts to wooden architecture, almost as complex as the stone structure it supports. The timber frameworks must bear enormous loads while providing stable working platforms for craftsmen installing marble blocks with precision that allows no margin for error. These temporary structures represent construction achievements that would be impressive even if they were permanent buildings. The lifting mechanisms designed to raise massive marble blocks to dome level employ pulley systems and counterweight techniques that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of mechanical advantage principles. The coordination required to position stones weighing several tons at precise locations while craftsmen work hundreds of feet above ground creates logistical challenges that require both technical innovation and extraordinary personal courage from construction workers. The acoustic design, incorporated into the dome's interior, reveals sophisticated understanding of sound physics that creates the reverberant environment, making whispered prayers seem to emanate from heaven itself. The curvature and surface treatments that produce these audio effects require mathematical precision that coordinates structural engineering with acoustic science to achieve results that seem miraculous to contemporary observers. The ventilation systems built into the dome's design demonstrate awareness of thermal dynamics that enable the interior to remain comfortable despite the enormous mass of stone that would normally create oppressive heat retention. Hidden air channels and carefully calculated openings create convection currents that maintain pleasant interior temperatures while remaining invisible to visitors experiencing the dome's spiritual effects. The waterproofing techniques employed to protect the dome from monsoon rains represent innovations in sealant chemistry and drainage design that prevent water damage while maintaining the structure's aesthetic integrity. The systems that channel rainwater away from vulnerable joints and decorative elements demonstrate engineering foresight that ensures long-term preservation of construction quality. The earthquake resistance, built into the dome's structural system, reflects sophisticated understanding of seismic forces that enables the structure to flex without failing during ground movements that would destroy more rigid constructions. The flexible joints and stress distribution techniques employed anticipate modern seismic engineering principles while creating durability that allows the dome to survive centuries of natural disasters. The decorative elements, integrated into the dome's exterior surface, require coordination between structural engineering and artistic craftsmanship that demonstrates how technical excellence and aesthetic beauty can enhance each other when guided by unified vision. The floral patterns and geometric designs that adorn the dome's surface must be carved and installed with precision that maintains both structural integrity and visual perfection. The 4 minarets that frame the central dome present their own engineering challenges. as these slender towers must achieve perfect vertical alignment while providing visual balance that enhances the dome's apparent lightness. The slight inward tilt built into each minaret, barely visible to casual observers, but crucial for optical effects, demonstrates the sophisticated understanding of visual psychology that guides every aspect of the monument's design. The integration of the dome with the building's overall structural system requires engineering solutions that coordinate enormous, concentrated loads with the distributed weight of surrounding architectural elements. The transition from the square base through octagonal intermediate sections to the circular dome represents geometric problem-solving that creates seamless visual flow while managing complex structural forces.
The lighting effects, achieved through the dome's relationship with surrounding architectural elements, create the sense of weightlessness that makes the structure seem to float above its earthly foundation. The careful calculation of shadows, reflections, and light penetration that produces these effects requires understanding of solar movement patterns and optical principles that demonstrate scientific sophistication equal to artistic achievement. The construction timeline for completing the dome stretches across several years, with each phase requiring perfect coordination between structural progress and decorative installation. The sequencing of different construction activities must account for curing times, seasonal weather patterns, and the availability of specialized craftsmen whose skills are required for specific installation phases. The quality control measures applied to dome construction exceed even the high standards maintained for other parts of the monument, as any structural flaws or aesthetic imperfections would be visible from great distances, while potentially compromising the entire building's stability. The inspection procedures and rebuilding requirements that ensure perfection create cost and time considerations that would be prohibitive for any project with normal financial constraints. The completion of the central dome marks a crucial milestone in the Taj Mahal's construction, as its successful execution demonstrates that the emperor's most ambitious architectural dreams can indeed be translated into physical reality. The dome's achievement provides inspiration and confidence that enables craftsmen to tackle the remaining decorative challenges with assurance that their efforts contribute to something truly unprecedented. As the dome rises to its final height and the outer shell receives its crowning finial, observers throughout Agra can see the monument taking shape as more than mere architecture. The dome that seemed impossible when first conceived now dominates the skyline as proof that human devotion, when combined with unlimited resources and expert craftsmanship, can create beauty that approaches the divine perfection it seeks to honor. You observe the painstaking completion of inlay work that transforms cold stone into warm, living art, through craftsmanship so refined it seems to capture the very essence of the garden paradise that inspired the monument's creation. The final years of construction focus on decorative details that will make every surface a testament to the artistic traditions of multiple civilizations synthesized into unified beauty that honors both earthly love and heavenly promise. The pietra dura technique employed for the monument's most spectacular decorative elements represents the pinnacle of stone inlay artistry, requiring precision that pushes human skill to its absolute limits. Master craftsmen from Florence working alongside Indian stone carvers who have refined their own inlay traditions through centuries of temple decoration create floral patterns so lifelike they seem ready to release fragrance into the marble chambers where Mumtaz Mahal rests. Each flower, leaf, and stem carved into the monument's surfaces requires individual attention that can occupy skilled craftsmen for weeks or months of detailed work. The tulips, roses, and iris blossoms that adorn interior walls must achieve botanical accuracy, while also conforming to the geometric principles that govern Islamic decorative art. This balance between naturalistic representation and abstract pattern making creates artistic innovations that influence decorative traditions throughout the Islamic world. The precious stones selected for inlay work represent a catalogue of the Earth's geological treasures, with each gem chosen not just for its beauty,
but for symbolic meanings that add layers of spiritual significance to the monument's decorative program. Carnelian from Rajasthan represents the courage that enabled their love to flourish despite royal protocol, while jade from China symbolizes the purity that characterized their relationship throughout 20 years of marriage. The calligraphy that adorns the monument's entrance arches and interior surfaces represents collaboration between the Islamic world's finest Arabic scribes and local craftsmen expert in stone carving techniques. The verses from the Quran that welcome visitors and comfort mourners must achieve perfect proportional relationships while maintaining the spiritual authority that makes sacred text effective for prayer and meditation. The geometric patterns that fill spaces between floral designs demonstrate mathematical sophistication that coordinates artistic beauty with spiritual symbolism. These intricate tessellations, based on principles that reflect divine order underlying natural creation, require precision that ensures perfect symmetry across vast architectural surfaces while creating visual rhythms that guide contemplation toward higher consciousness.
The mother-of-pearl inlays that accent certain decorative elements add subtle luminescence that makes surfaces seem to glow with internal light. These delicate materials, imported from seas throughout the Indian Ocean region, require installation techniques that protect their fragile beauty while ensuring permanent integration with the marble surfaces they adorn. The silver and gold details incorporated into specific decorative elements represent metalworking achievements that coordinate with stone carving to create surfaces that seem jeweled rather than merely decorated. The precious metals must be shaped and installed with precision that ensures they will not expand or contract differently from surrounding stone materials, preventing the separation that could destroy decorative integrity over time. The garden design that provides the monument's landscape setting requires botanical expertise that coordinates plant selection with architectural aesthetics, while ensuring year-round beauty that maintains the paradise imagery essential to the monument's spiritual significance. The careful selection of flowers, trees, and shrubs that bloom in different seasons creates constantly changing beauty that reflects the eternal nature of the love the monument commemorates. The water features integrated throughout the garden complex employ hydraulic engineering that creates the constant sound of flowing water while maintaining the mirror-like reflecting pools that double the monument's visual impact. The channels, fountains, and pools must function reliably while remaining aesthetically integrated with architectural and landscape elements that create unified paradise imagery. The pathway systems that guide visitors through the complex create carefully orchestrated visual experiences that reveal the monument's beauty gradually while building emotional impact toward the climactic moment of approaching the central tomb. The geometric patterns embedded in walkway surfaces coordinate with architectural decorations, while providing practical benefits like non-slip surfaces and drainage during monsoon rains. The lighting effects achieved through carefully planned openings in walls and ceilings create the sense that the monument glows with divine radiance rather than mere reflected sunlight. The window screens, doorway proportions, and interior architectural details that produce these effects require understanding of solar movement patterns that ensures optimal illumination throughout the day and across seasonal variations. The acoustic properties built into interior spaces enhance the spiritual atmosphere by making spoken prayers and whispered remembrances resonate with the kind of musical quality that makes ordinary speech seem sacred. The dome's interior surfaces, wall curvatures, and ceiling treatments that create these audio effects represent sophisticated understanding of sound physics applied to architectural design. The security features discreetly integrated into the monument's design protect precious decorative elements while remaining invisible to visitors experiencing the building's spiritual beauty. Hidden reinforcements, concealed access panels, and subtle surveillance positions enable protection of valuable materials without compromising the aesthetic integrity that makes the monument effective as both tomb and pilgrimage destination. The maintenance systems built into the monument's design anticipate the long-term care requirements that will preserve decorative beauty for future generations. Drainage systems that prevent water damage, ventilation that controls humidity, and access routes that enable cleaning and repair work demonstrate foresight that ensures the monument's preservation without requiring modifications that might compromise original design intentions. The final installation of the cenotaphs that mark Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal's resting places represents the emotional culmination of 22 years of devoted construction. These false tombs, positioned above the actual burial chamber to maintain appropriate religious protocol, achieve the perfect balance between honoring the dead and inspiring the living through beauty that transforms grief into celebration of love's triumph over mortality. As the last decorative elements are completed and the final gardens planted, the transformation of imperial grief into transcendent beauty becomes apparent to everyone who witnesses the finished monument. The Taj Mahal stands complete as proof that human love, when supported by unlimited devotion and expert craftsmanship, can create beauty worthy of divine inspiration, while providing comfort to all who experience loss and hope for reunion beyond death's temporary separation. You stand with an aged emperor before his completed masterpiece, understanding how grief became transcendent beauty through 22 years of devoted construction that transformed personal loss into humanity's most sublime architectural achievement. The year 1653 marks the Taj Mahal's completion, yet for Shah Jahan, the monument represents both triumphant fulfillment of his promise to Mumtaz Mahal and painful reminder of the love that death has made impossible to continue sharing in earthly form. The emperor who began this project as a broken widower has aged into someone whose grief has been refined into artistic vision that created something unprecedented in human history. His hair, completely white since Mumtaz Mahal's death 22 years ago, frames a face marked by the kind of noble suffering that comes from transforming personal anguish into beauty that serves others. His eyes, when they rest upon the completed monument, reflect satisfaction that he has fulfilled his promise, while also revealing the continued sorrow that no architectural achievement can completely heal. The monument itself exceeds even the emperor's ambitious dreams, achieving beauty that seems to belong more to paradise than to the earthly realm where it was constructed. The white marble surfaces shift constantly from silver to rose to gold as sunlight and moonlight play across their translucent depths, creating the impression that the building breathes with life, rather than standing as mere stone architecture. The dome that seemed impossible when first conceived now dominates Agra's skyline, as proof that human determination, when guided by unlimited love, can indeed create miracles. The four minarets that frame the central tomb achieve perfect balance between earthly stability and heavenly aspiration, their slight inward lean creating optical effects that make the central dome appear to float weightlessly above its marble foundation. These slender towers, each one a masterpiece of engineering and decoration, serve both practical and symbolic functions, providing visual harmony that enhances the dome's beauty, while announcing to the world that this is sacred space where heaven touches earth. The garden complex that surrounds the monument creates the paradise imagery that makes the Taj Mahal effective as both tomb and spiritual retreat. The fourfold garden design, with its geometric precision and carefully planned water features, provides earthly representation of the Quranic paradise where faithful souls reunite in perfect happiness. The cypress trees that line the pathways symbolize death and mourning, while fruit trees represent life and hope, creating landscape theology that speaks to visitors regardless of their religious background.
The interior chambers, where the cenotaphs mark the royal couple's symbolic resting place, achieve the perfect balance between magnificent decoration and spiritual reverence that makes the space suitable for both architectural appreciation and religious devotion. The false tombs, positioned above the actual burial vault, maintain Islamic protocols while providing focus for the prayers and remembrances that continue daily as pilgrims come to honor both the love story and the spiritual truths it represents. The acoustic properties that make whispered prayers resonate with musical beauty transform the tomb chambers into spaces where human communication with the divine seems natural and effortless.
The dome's interior surfaces and the precise curvatures that create these sound effects demonstrate how technical excellence can enhance spiritual experience when guided by understanding that great architecture serves both aesthetic and religious purposes. The decorative program that adorns every surface celebrates both earthly beauty and heavenly promise through artistic synthesis that honors multiple cultural traditions while creating something entirely new. The floral inlays that seem ready to release fragrance, the geometric patterns that reflect divine mathematical order, and the calligraphic verses that offer spiritual comfort combine to create visual environments that lift consciousness toward contemplation of eternal truths. The Emperor's daily visits to the completed monument reveal how the Taj Mahal has become both comfort and torment for the man who created it. The beauty that honors Mumtaz Mahal's memory provides satisfaction that he has fulfilled his promise to create something worthy of their love, yet the monument also emphasizes her absence in ways that make grief a constant companion rather than a healing experience. The international recognition that the Taj Mahal receives, even during Shah Jahan's lifetime, demonstrates how completely the monument transcends its original purpose as personal memorial to become universal symbol of love's power to create lasting beauty. European travelers write detailed accounts that struggle to capture architectural magnificence their own cultures have never achieved, while Islamic scholars throughout the Muslim world celebrate the monument as representing their civilization's highest artistic achievement. The economic impact of the monument's construction has created permanent changes throughout the empire, as the technologies, trade relationships, and artistic innovations developed for building the Taj Mahal continue influencing architecture and craftsmanship long after construction's completion. The 22 years of international collaboration have established cultural exchanges that enrich artistic development throughout Asia, while creating techniques that will influence building practices for centuries.
The human cost of achieving such perfection becomes apparent in the emperor's growing isolation and the empire's financial strain that resulted from dedicating unlimited resources to artistic achievement rather than military expansion or administrative improvement. The Taj Mahal represents both the pinnacle of Mughal civilization and evidence of priorities that will contribute to the dynasty's eventual decline as practical concerns yield to aesthetic perfectionism. The succession crisis that eventually deposes Shah Jahan in 1658 reflects partly the suspicion and resentment that his single-minded devotion to the monument has created among those who believe imperial resources should serve more practical purposes. His son, Aurangzeb's victory over more sympathetic brothers ensures that Shah Jahan's final years will be spent in imprisonment, gazing at his masterpiece from the Red Fort, while being denied the opportunity to visit Mumtaz Mahal's tomb. The tragic irony of Shah Jahan's final imprisonment transforms the Taj Mahal from symbol of fulfilled promise into reminder of love's ultimate powerlessness against political reality and family betrayal. The emperor who created humanity's most beautiful monument to marital devotion spends his last 8 years as prisoner in his own palace, able to see but not touch the architectural embodiment of his greatest happiness. As our journey through this timeless love story draws to its close, let yourself settle deeper into the comfort of your own space, feeling the weight of centuries gently lifting from your shoulders. The Taj Mahal still stands today, its marble surfaces continuing their eternal dance with light and shadow, just as they have for nearly 400 years since Shah Jahan's grief transformed into transcendent beauty. Tonight, as you close your eyes, perhaps you can imagine moonlight caressing those pristine white domes, the same silver radiance that has blessed countless lovers who have walked through those paradise gardens, whispering their own promises of devotion. The Emperor's love story reminds us that the deepest human emotions, love, loss, hope, and remembrance, create legacies that outlast empires.
touching hearts across cultures and centuries. In our modern world of hurried days and endless distractions, there's profound comfort in knowing that such patience and dedication once created something so beautiful that it literally takes the breath away from millions of visitors each year. Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal's love teaches us that the most precious things in life require time, attention, and the willingness to pour our hearts completely into what matters most. So rest now, letting their story of devotion wrap around you like silk, knowing that somewhere in India, dawn is breaking over marble that still glows with the warmth of a love that refused to be conquered by death. Sweet dreams of gardens where water flows like music, and love builds monuments that make eternity visible to human eyes.